Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to do this half fan stitch. Now some people call it half a fan, some people call it a half shell. It looks a little bit like a corner to corner stitch. It's done in a straight line, but it's a half a fan. Or if you're one of the people who call these shells, it's a half shell. A one row repeat, very simple. Works up really quick. Use any yarn that you want and use whatever hook it tells you to use on your yarn. And this is a little sample I've been doing. I'm going to stretch it out so you can see these stitches a little bit better. They're just little clusters. It's a one row repeat. You're just doing double crochets and single crochets. That's it, that's all you do, and you repeat it row after row, just a one row repeat. So I'm going to show you how to do this half fan stitch. Now you use the hook size it tells you on the yarn that you've chosen to do this stitch with. We're going to do a foundation chain. We're going to do our foundation chain in sets of 3 stitches. So 1, 2 and 3. Now when you're doing a foundation chain, never count the loop on the hook. Always count the stitches that you've already made. So we have 1, 2 and 3. 1, 2, 3. Keep doing your sets of 3 until your chain is as wide as you need it for the blanket that you want to make. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I've got enough done on my sample. I'm going to chain one extra stitch. Now into that second stitch in the chain, never count the loop on the hook. 1 and 2, we're going to put a single crochet and pull through. Into the same stitch you're going to put 2 double crochets. That's 1 and 2. And if you're in the UK or Europe, these are treble crochets. You're going to skip 2 stitches. 1, 2, and then do that cluster again into the third stitch. 1 single crochet and 2 double crochet. 1 and 2. Skip 2, 1, 2, and then single crochet and 2 double crochet. 1 and 2. Skip 2 and then do your cluster. 1 single crochet and 2 double. All the way along. We're going to skip 2 and we're going to put a single crochet into this last stitch. 1 single crochet. Now the smaller the hook you use, the more dainty and compact this little half shell is going to be. If you use thicker yarn and a bigger hook, you'll get a bigger pattern, just the way I showed you at the beginning. So at the end I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Don't count that as a stitch. Now into that very first space there, you're going to put a single crochet. You're going to put in the same stitch 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. You're going to skip 2 stitches. 1, 2, and into that single crochet stitch you're going to put another single crochet and 2 double crochets, all into the same stitch. You're going to do your little half shell into that space. So turn your work, skip 2 stitches, and into that little single crochet you're going to do a single crochet and 2 double crochets. Skip 2 stitches, single crochet and 2 double crochet into the same stitch. This is the row we'll keep repeating, and it makes this beautiful little half shell or a half fan. Skip 2 stitches and into the 3rd stitch, single crochet and 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. You're going to do that all the way to the end. Skip 2, single crochet into the next stitch and 2 double crochets into the same stitch. Make your little half shell. Skip 2 stitches. You can turn it and you see the 2, 1, 2, and you're going into that little 3rd one. And do your half shell. Skip 2 and then do your half shell. So you're going to skip 2 and do a single crochet in at the end. And this is what you have. Chain 1 and turn. Into that very first stitch, I'm going to do a single crochet and 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. Skip 2 stitches, skip 1, 2 and into that little single crochet there. This is what you'll keep repeating until your blanket or your project is as big as you need it to be. So just stretch it a little, skip 1, 2 and then single crochet into the 3rd stitch and your 2 double crochets into the same stitch. And this is what you get. You will have a nice straight edge and you'll have these lovely little half shell clusters. I'll do a few more rows. I'll come back and show you what it looks like in this pink, and then I'll show you my larger blanket again. So I've done a few more rows, and just remember that every time you get to the end you'll do a single crochet into the end, chain 1 and turn, and you'll work, and then you'll work into the stitch here and do your half shell or a half fan. Some people call these a shell and some people call them a fan. So this is only half of it. This is just a half of one, and look at the texture in that. It is so pretty. Now I'll get my larger one that I've been working on in the Variegated Yarn. Now this is a candy pink. It's a weight 2 yarn. This is a lightweight 2 yarn, and I'm using a 6 hook. So the things you have to remember is you do a single crochet on your last stitch here, chain 1 and turn, and then you'll do your next half fan cluster into that very first stitch. And this is the other one that I've been working on. Now this is just a variegated yarn. So the yarn that I've been using is this. So this is the yarn that I've been using for this one. The colour number is 55414. And it's so pretty. So you can use any yarn for this. Just use the hook size it tells you on the yarn that you've chosen to do. And this is how pretty this stitch works out. So give it a try. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Look what I've been making. My friend Liz showed me how to do a log cabin blanket. And look at this. Now I've got all the yarn that I've been using under here. I used 5 colours and I used white for the centre. And I'm going to use the white to finish off my square when it's big enough. So this is a great way to use up scrap yarn. It's a really fantastic scrap yarn blanket. And it's got this lovely sort of geometrical pattern in it. Now there's one thing I want to say, that when you do a big square, a lot of people say that you've got to do a chain in between your granny stitch. I don't do a chain in between the actual stitches. I only do the chain in the corners here. And the reason for that is, when my mum many years ago used to do crochet squares for blankets, really big ones, she used to get like a ripple in her blanket like that when it got really big. And then someone had said, who was much older than my mother, said to her that it's because she was doing a chain in between. When you do your chain to start with, it's fine, but once your blanket's bigger and you've washed it, that chain one stretches. It stretches out, and that's what's causing that ripple. Anytime you've got a blanket and it's got a big ripple, if you straighten it and you end up with a ripple like this in it, then your stitches are too loose and don't do the chain. Now look at mine when it's straightened out. This is quite a large square. There is no sign whatsoever anywhere on it starting to ripple in or go baggy along the top, because I just don't do a chain. Now this log cabin also gives it a directional, look at these extra dimensional diagonal little lines in the blanket as well. This is the other side of it. It's completely reversible. Now what I did with mine is, I didn't want any of the colours to meet up, so I did like a mirror image. I started with white and then I did yellow. Then I did my green and my pink, then my blue and my lilac. And then what I did, instead of going, I didn't want to do the white again. Instead of starting with the yellow here, I actually started with the yellow on this side. And then I went to pink, then lilac, and then I'll go to whatever colour's next on it. I think it's green next for that section. So I'm going to show you how to do this. It's really pretty, look at that. It really is a pretty blanket. I love it. You can do this in dark colours. You can make it in any colour. Use darker colours, use lighter colours, use a mix. Use bright neon colours. That would be amazing, with bright oranges and yellows and greens. That would be fantastic. Really bright for a child as well. Make it any size you like. Stop whenever you want to stop, when your square is as big as you want. I'll show you what to do to finish it, because we've got like an abrupt end here. What we'll do is we'll just go around the whole blanket in a traditional granny style in my white. So you don't need to do it the way I've done it, when I've started it with the white, and I'm going to edge it in white, and that's the only time I'm going to use the white. But you can just use up all your scrap yarns, all your little odds and ends. Now I don't have much of my green and my lilac left, but it doesn't matter, I've got more. Or you can finish it whenever you like. So anyway, I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to clear my desk. I'll keep the blanket off to the side, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Now all these yarns that I'm using are double knitting. They're all DK. DK means double knitting. We're going to start with a magic circle. If you can't do a magic circle, then chain 4 and slip stitch together and make it into a ring. So for a magic circle, it's just like a large slip knot. So just wrap your yarn around your fingers. I've got the tail end here. Put your hook underneath and pull your working yarn through. So it's kind of just like a big slip knot. And then you just tighten that one in, and that gives you your stitch. But it works like a slip knot as well. If you do a slip knot but don't tighten it, it's the same thing. So I'm going to chain 3. So that's my first one, 2 and 3. Each of the granny clusters are done in sets of 3 stitches. So if you're in the USA, these are double crochets for you, and here in the UK they're called treble crochets. It's the same stitch. So that counts as your first one. So yarn over and into there, we'll do our second one. Yarn over and through. So we've got 3 here, that makes your first cluster. You're going to chain 2, 1, 2. Another tip for using a smaller hook, it gives you nice dainty little granny sections. So into the same big loop you're going to put another 3 treble crochets together. That's 1, another 3, so that's 2 and 3. We're making up the first 4 corners. Chain 2, 1, 2. So we need 4 clusters. 1, 2 and 3. So we've got 3 clusters. Chain 2, 1, 2, and do 3 treble crochets into that big circle. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, pull your stitch tight. That's pulling it into a square. Look at that, it's pulled it right into a square for you. So into the top of that chain of 3, 1, 2, and into the third stitch, you'll slip stitch your chain. And that's you got the centre of your granny square. So that's those first 4 looking little petals that we've got, and that's that. We're going to do 1 round around this square. You can, if you want, turn your blanket back and forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my blanket around, pull that stitch up a little bit. I want to go into that space because I don't want a big ugly line joining up the corner of my little blanket here. I'm going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to count as 1 treble crochet and 2 chain. Now into this space you're going to put 2 treble crochet. You're going to put 3 treble crochets. 1, 2 and 3. So that's your corner done. You're going to go straight over to the next corner. Don't do any chains. Straight into here, and you're going to put 3 treble crochet, 2 chain and 3 treble crochet. Don't worry about this. As you can see, that is the last stitch in your last cluster around when you go around. So into this corner you're going to put 3 treble crochets, 1, 2 and 3, chain 2, 1, 2 and do another 3, and that's going to create your corner. 1, 2 and 3 treble crochets, and these are double crochets if you're in the USA. Looks kind of squint, don't worry about it. you're going over to the next chain. Now if you're a beginner, you can put a marker in here. You can either put a piece of bright coloured yarn, or you can put a stitch marker in. It's up to you, and that way you'll see where your corners are. So 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, and put 3 more stitches into this corner, 2 and 3. Just give that a little pull, keep your centre tight. We'll stitch the ends in either as you go along or at the end. So over to the next corner, this is our last corner here, and do your 3 treble crochets, 2 and 3, chain 2, 1, 2, and 3 treble crochets, 1, 2 and 3. Now we've still got this half over here. We've got one set of 3 done. So what we're going to do is, that chain is a treble crochet. We're going to put 2 into that chain space, 1 and 2. Now we're going to join and close your square into the 3rd stitch, 1, 2, 3, slip stitch to join, and there you go. That's you got your little centre square. That's that part there. So now what you're going to do, you're going to cut your yarn, leave enough to sew in, just pull your yarn through, and that's you got your centre square done. Now what we're going to do is, every time we join it, we're going to use a different corner, and that way you won't have an ugly big line up your blanket. If you look at mine, you can't see any of the big joining lines along the middle or anywhere. That's why I always do it in the corner, and that's what my mum always taught me, is to do your joinings in a corner. It's neater. Now I think we'll move to the lemon. So we'll use the lemon yarn. I'll find my end. Pull your next colour through. I'm going to wrap that tail over the top just to hold it in, and I'm going to chain, and I'm going to chain 3. 1, just tighten that in, 2 and 3. Now I don't put my yarn along and crochet it in, because when you wash your blanket it comes out. I use a darning needle and I sew in properly all the ends. So that counts as your first treble crochet. So what we're going to do is, we're going to work along to this corner and down to this corner, and then we're going to work back. We're going to start this log cabin part, this part here, this part. We're just going to go down 2 sides of the square. So I've done my chain, that's my first treble crochet. Yarn over and into there, you're going to put 2 more treble crochets. So that's me got my edge. I'm going to move to the next space and do a cluster in here. That's 3 treble crochets, 1, 2 and 3. I'm going to move to the corner. I'm going to put 3 treble crochet, 2 chain and 3 treble crochet, because that's my corner. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, I'll move that out the way a little bit, and then into the same space, because it's your corner, you're going to do your next 3 treble crochets. I'm going to pull that tail end over. 1, 2 and 3. So that's you got your corner. Now if you're following along, just pause the video and catch up if I'm going a little too quick. I try to keep it at a steady pace because it's not always absolute beginners that join the channel. You can just click on the pause button and catch up and then restart the video. So into the next one we're going to do our cluster. From now on we're going to call this our cluster. That's 3 treble crochets. 1, 2 and 3. Now you're going to move to the next corner. What you're going to do in this corner is you're going to put 1 cluster. Just 1 cluster. That's 3 treble crochets. 1, 2 and 3. That gives you that cluster. Now what you're going to do is we're going to work this as a log, so we're going to chain 3 and work back. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn your work around. Into this next space you're going to do your cluster. 1, 2 and 3, and this is what you have. So just remember you're doing a chain 3 and then a cluster, no corner. We're only going to be having 1 corner worked in this lemon. So into this chain space, do your cluster, 1, 2 and 3. My tail out the way. We're going to do a corner. We're at the corner. So it's 1 cluster, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, and 1 more cluster into the corner, 1, 2, 3 stitches. Going to do a cluster into this space and a cluster into this space. 1, 2 and 3, and a cluster into this space. 1, 2 and 3. Now into the top of this treble crochet here, this one here, you're going to do 1 treble crochet. So count 1, 2, 3 stitches and do 1 treble crochet. And this is what you have. I'll turn it around. So you can either choose to do 2 rounds of each colour, you can do 3 or you can do 4. On my blanket I did 4. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Now that's the first part of my cluster. I'm going in here and I'm going to put 2 treble crochets. 1 and 2. Now don't worry about it. When we do the next colour, we're going to come up here and we'll be coming up into these spaces. So don't worry that you don't have corners here. We'll fix that. So into the next one. So I've done my chain of 3 and I put 2 trebles into that space. So now we're going to do a cluster into each of these spaces. We'll do a corner, a cluster into each of the spaces, and we'll put a cluster into this part here. So this is what you have. 1 chain and 2 clusters, 1 chain and 2 treble crochets in that space. So we're going to do a cluster into the next space, 1, 2 and 3. Into the next space you're going to put a cluster, 1, so that's 1, 2 and 3. So we're going to do a corner, 1 cluster, 2 chain and 1 cluster. So your cluster's made up of 3 UK trebles, or that's 3 USA double crochets if you're in the USA. Chain 2 and 1, 2, 3 stitches to make the cluster. We're going over to the next stitch, into the space, sorry, and do our cluster, 1, 2 and 3. Into the next space in between the clusters, 1, 2 and 3, and then into this chain space here you're going to put 1 cluster, 1, 2 and 3. So you're building your little log. You can see now how it's going to work. You can stop at 3 rows if you want, but I'm going to do the same as this one. I'm going to do 4. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3 and turn. I'm not going to do a cluster here, I'm going into the space. There's nowhere to put a cluster, so I'm going over here and do my cluster into each of the chain spaces. 1, 2, move to the next one, put your cluster in, three. Now we're going to do a corner, so that's 1 cluster, 1, 2 and 3 stitches, chain 2, 1, 2 and 1 cluster, 1, 2 and 3. Move to the next one, 1, 2, 3. It's 1 cluster done. Into the next one, 1, 2 and 3, and we're going to put 1 into this space, 1, 2 and 3. Now you're going to put 1 treble crochet into the top of that cluster there, so count 1, 2, 3 stitches, count 3 stitches and do a treble crochet, a UK treble crochet. So that's me got my 4 rows done. 1, 2, 3 and 4. I'm going to cut my yarn. Make sure I leave enough to sew in. I'll just leave my yellow to the side. Never mind all these ends, you can sew them all in. So this is what you have. Like this inner part here that I've got here. So I'm going to move my yellow over to the side, And I'm going to start using this pink yarn. So we've got it this way. We're going into this corner here. Just put your hook through that space. That was your chain 3 space, remember, on one of your rows. Put it into there and pull through. Make sure you leave enough of a tail. Doesn't want to go in that one. It's good. No, no, please. There we go. And I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2 and 3. So we're going to work across the top, do a corner and work down to the bottom. Then we'll work back the way. So with this log cabin, like I've said, you're doing it in half sections. So that's the first, that chain of 3 is my first stitch in my cluster. I'm going to put 2 more into this space. 1 and 2. So now I'm going to move to this space. You've got a cluster that's on its side and a space. We're going into the space. Just treat it like a chain space. 1, 2 and 3. So we're going into this one. Looks a little strange because you've got one cluster going that way and one going up, but we're going into that space. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to answer my phone. Someone's quite eager to get in contact. So into the next one. Oops. Do your cluster. 1, 2 and 3. So now we're at the corner. We're going to put a corner in. 1 cluster, 2 chain and 1 cluster. Once you get it into your head that you're only going across and down and then up and back on this section here, this will become much clearer and easier for you. Just remember that when you're here, don't go around the corner. And when you're here, don't go around the corner. You can put a little marker here and a little marker here up here in this stitch, so you know where you're starting and finishing. It's a great thing to use markers. So into here we're going to put 1 cluster. 1, 2, 3 stitches, inner cluster, chain 2, 1, 2, get some more of my yarn. Then we're going to put another cluster in here because this is a corner. 1, 2 and 3. Now into these spaces you're going to put a cluster. Again, it looks kind of odd because you've got 1 cluster going up the way and 1 on the side. When you get to the chain 3, treat that as a chain space. So a cluster into the next one. 1, 2 and 3. Cluster into the next space. 1, 2, 3. Over to this space. Now this is a chain, remember, but it's still treated as a space. 1, 2 and 3. And that's us working up. We're working up the side of that lemon. Now it looks a little odd because we've still got more rows to do of the pink. It will balance out when we've got more rows done. So into this chain space, in here you're going to put a cluster. 1, 2 and 3. Now once we've sewed that tail in, it will balance that out. You're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn around, and we're going to work back that way. We'll put a corner in here. Now this is where, if you want, you can put a stitch marker here and a stitch marker here at the end, and that way you know you're only working that section. So we will stitch all my ends in. So we're going to do 4 rows, that's row 1, and we're going to do another 3 so that we have 4 rows on this side. So we've done a chain 3, but we've got no space, so we're going into the space. Don't be tempted to squish a cluster into there, it won't work. Chain 3 and then move to the next space. 1, 2 and 3. So what you'll notice is on the ends of your rows you'll have a cluster, a chain, then a cluster and a chain. And that's what we have on this side. We had a cluster, a chain, a cluster and a chain. So just remember, up the sides, it will keep your sides nice and even. You'll have a cluster, a chain, a cluster and then a chain. So into the next space we're going to work our way around. Put a cluster in. 1, 2, 3, move to the next one, and as you can see your blanket is beginning to grow. 2 and 3. You can pause the video and do your row. So we're at the corner, so in the corner it's 1 cluster, 2 chain and 1 cluster. Two chain, 1, 2, and our cluster. Now move to the next space here. And your next one, 1, 2 and 3. Your next one, 1, 2 and 3. Into your next space here, 1, 2, some more yarn, and 3. So we're at the end of the row. Don't be tempted to make a corner. So in your stitch, so into your chain of 3 you're going to do 1 treble crochet. You're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3 and turn. Now this is when we put 2 trebles in to the chain space. That's the first one of your cluster. So put 2 more into the chain space, 1 and 2. Then we'll work our way around. We'll work our way along, do a corner and work back. So into the chain space here you'll do a treble, you'll do a cluster, chain 3 and work your way back that way. So once you've got your 4 rows done, I'll show you what to do next. You can linger along and I'll do my rows. So it's a cluster in between each of these spaces. You're going to put a cluster. in the corner you're going to build a corner, 2 clusters, 1 cluster, 2 chain and 1 cluster, chain 2 and do another cluster in the corner, and work along this side. So I'm at the end of the row and I've got a chain 3 space. I'm going to put 1 cluster in there. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and this is my last row. So I've got 3 rows done. Got 3 of the pink done. I'm going to do my last row, so I've done my chain 3 and I'm going to move into the chain space because there's a cluster already there. So you'll know when to go into the space because there's already a cluster there. So do you see what I mean with a cluster, a chain, a cluster and then a chain? So into that space, that keeps your edge straight. 1, 2 and 3. So when we do our next colour, I'll turn that so you can see it. When we do the next colour, we'll come up these 2 sides. We'll come up these 2 sides. So you're doing this side, then that side, then that side and that side. And that's how you build this blanket up. So over to here. 1. I'll get this side done. And I'll show you one more time adding the colour. And then I'll show you how to finish off your blanket when you get your squares done as big as you want. Now you can just do small squares. You can do it like this and then go around it in another colour and finish it off as a square and do all your squares different colours and sew them together. Or you can just make one great big square. So I've got a cluster left, so I should know that it's a treble crochet goes into the top of that corner one there. So what we're going to do is cut my yarn and pull it through, finish that off. Now don't worry, it will straighten out, and when you get your next colour going down this one, we'll flip it over. You see it a little easier. So when we do the next colour up here and along, this is where we're going, up and along this way. You can do it from this side, it's up to you. If you want to do it from this side, keeps all your tail ends on the one end, it doesn't really matter, we're going to sew them in. So what I'll do, it will straighten, don't worry about it. So that's what we have at the moment, doing my 4 rows. So the next colour will come along here, we'll do a corner and go up, chain 3 and come along and back. We'll do our 4 rows on this side, these 2 sides, like this. So I'll start off one more colour and I'll show you again going over this section to include these sections of pink. And then I'll go back to my big blanket and I'll show you how to finish it off when you've done your square as big as you want it. So I'm going to use this little bundle of mint green that I've got. So I'm just going to give it a little turn because I want to start in a corner of the pink. So we're going to work across and down this way. So I'm going to go into that chain 3 here. This is where we finished that row. So I'm going to go into that space, pull my green through. I've got mint green. And I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3 up the side. So into there I'm going to put another 2 treble crochets, 1 and 2. So that makes the first cluster. I'm going to work along here and do a corner. That's 1 cluster, 2 chain and 1 cluster. I'll work down here to here. I'll put a cluster in to this space that's here in the corner, chain 3 and work back. So I'm going to work my clusters along here, 1, 2, 3 into the spaces. So into these spaces, and remember again you've got one on its side and one going up and down the way. Just go right into that space, 1, 2, 3, move to the next space, work our way along to the corner. So I'm at the corner, so 1 cluster, 1, 2, that's 3 stitches, 1 cluster has 3 stitches, chain 2 and a cluster into the corner, and work our way down this side. And we'll start to include this section as well. We'll go right down and include this section. So we're at the end and we've got a cluster and a chain. So we're going into that space and we're going to do 1 cluster, now don't be tempted to do a corner and go down that way. So you're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3 and turn. So we've got our cluster and our chain, so we're going to go into this space. You can't put a cluster there because there's one there already. So go into the chain space and do your cluster. And you'll go along to the next space and you'll do 4 rows of your next colour. so you can see what's going on with it. We're going to work back that way, chain 3 or do a cluster and work back. You'll chain 3 or do a cluster, whatever it is that you get. When you're on a chain 3, it's a cluster that goes in there, and then you'll chain 3 and work back the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my 4 rows of green, and I'll come back and I'll show you how to finish off your square. Okay? So I've got my 4 rows of my mint green. I've done my last cluster. So I'm going to do into the top of that treble crochet, I'm going to do 1 treble crochet here. I'm going to cut my green, just pull that through to lock it off, and this is what we have. Now I'm not going to go back to the blue, I'm going to go to the lemon. I'm going to turn my square that way, and I'm going to do the lemon. So the lemon's going to be opposite this one, so it's not on the same side. So I'm going to keep the blue. When I've got this square big enough, I'll put that blue around the edge, the whole edge of the blanket. So I'm going to go back to the lemon, and I'm going to do my 4 rows on my lemon. So all you do is you just go into this side here. I've got my chain of 3. I'm going to pull my lemon through. Make sure I've got enough for sewing in. And I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2 and 3. So into that chain space, put 2 more treble crochets to make my cluster. And that's because I'm in a chain 3 space there. So again, what we'll do, we're just going to work our way into the spaces, doing our granny clusters. We get to the corner, 1 cluster, 2 chain and 1 cluster, work down, chain 3 and work back. And we'll do that for 4 rows. I'll do my chain of 3 and I'll work the rest of my rows. And that is what you'll do when you keep going with your blanket. So what I'm going to show you is, when you keep going around and you've made your blanket as big as you want it to be, I'm going to show you how to finish off your blanket. You're going to sew in all your ends, and I'll lift this up a little bit because this one is bigger. You're going to sew in all your ends, and as you can see, I've got all my squares all done the way I want, like this. Now I started with white and then I didn't use any other white on it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick a corner and I'm going to get my white. But anyway, I'm going to go in to this corner. I'm going to add my white, just like we've been doing before. Leave myself enough to stitch in the end. I'll zoom back down. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and into that corner I'm going to put another 2 treble crochets, and that's me got 1 cluster of that corner made. Now I'm going to work my way all the way around the blanket, and I'll finish that corner when I get to here. So into the chain space I'm going to do my cluster. That's 3 UK treble crochets. If you're in the USA, these are double crochets for you, but it's the same stitch. So move to the next one. 1, 2 and 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work my way along here, and I'll build a corner in this chain space that's here. So I'll do that and I'll come back and show you once I get to the end of this row. So I've worked my way along with the white on my first edge. Now I'm going to show you when you get to your colour block. You're just going to do what you were doing before and do your cluster into those chain spaces. And 3. Now when you get to the last one, it's a chain 3 with a space there. You're going to do a corner. You're going to put 2 clusters, 2 chain in here. So 1, 2, 3 stitches, chain 2 and do another cluster into here because this is a corner. And that's you got your corner made. Now I don't know whether to do 4 rounds of the white or only do 2. I think I'll do 2. I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like with 2. And you can decide yourself whether you want to do a big band of white all the way around your square. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work my way along this side. I'll work all the way along. Now we do have a corner here, so we'll do a corner in here and work all the way along here. Now when we get to here, you'll put 1 cluster, 2 chain and 1 cluster. You'll build a corner and go down this side using the chain spaces for your clusters. Down this side you'll build a corner in here and work down. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do my 2 rows and this is what it looks like just now. I'll lift that up so you can see. We're going to go all the way around the blanket with my final colour, and I've chosen the white that I had in the middle, and that's really setting it off because the only place I've got the white is in the middle and on the edge. So this is what my blanket looks like with 2 lines of white around it. I think I'll leave it there. I don't want to put a great big band of white around. I think that just lifts all the colours and just makes it perfect for me. Now what I'm going to do, find the end. I've made a big stitch here so it didn't fall out. So when I got back to the beginning, I just done a slip stitch into that one that was there to close off the round. So I'm just going to pull that tail through. I'll stitch those in. I'll stitch those 2 tails in. And that is how you do a log cabin granny stitch. And it's so pretty. Look at that. You can do it any colour you like. I did mine with 4 rows. 4 rows seemed to work out where I had a chain 3 left here, so I could attach my next cluster to it, if you see what I mean. 4 rows just seems to be perfect, and I think it's beautiful. Look at that, it's absolutely beautiful. I've got my ends to sew in. So thank you very much for watching. Now rewind the video if you need to rewind the video and work along until you get the hang of it, and then you can pause the video and just keep checking. So thank you very much for watching. Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to do this delicate, beautiful granny stitch baby blanket. Now the blanket that I've done it in a mixed pink yarn. I put a lighter pink over the edge. This yarn, I don't remember the makeup. Look at this, it's so pretty. You can do this in any colour. I'm going to do the sample. I'm going to do the sample with this King Cole Melody. This is a double knitting yarn. Now the tip for doing nice dainty stitches for baby blankets is use a thin yarn and a small hook. A thin yarn and a small hook. Now the ribbons, this little ribbon is a crocodile clip. You can unclip it and you can use it in the child's hair if you're doing this for a baby. I just picked one of my clusters on the edge of the two colours and I weaved in some ribbon all around it, and I cheated. I went onto Amazon and I bought 4-inch crocodile clip hair bows and I put that on there. Now I'm going to show you how to do this. It's a beautiful square. It's quite large. You can make it as big as you want it to be. I'm going to show you how to start the middle and how to work around, and you'll make yours as big as you want it to be. So I'm going to fold this up and I'll show you how to do this stitch. There's two ways to start this. You can either do a chain of 3, 1, 2, 3, slip stitch to that first stitch that you done. Just pull your yarn through and through again, and you're going to work into the middle of that little space. Or the easiest way I found is to do a magic circle. Have your yarn down your hand, wrap your yarn around. This is your working yarn, that's the end. Turn your hand around, put your hook under and just pull that yarn through. Take your fingers out and catch your working yarn, and that's you got a magic loop. It's just like a large slip knot. You're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now that chain of 5 is 1 double crochet and 2 chain. Into your magic circle you're going to put 3 double crochets. 1, 2 and 3. You're going to chain 2, 1, 2. Into the magic circle you're going to do another granny cluster of 3 double crochets. So yarn over and in to the circle, yarn over again, you'll come through 2 loops, yarn over and through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through, yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over and 1 more, and that's your next cluster made, and that chain of 2 is your corner. We'll fix this one when we come right around. We need 4 clusters inside here, so we're going to chain 2, 1, 2 and do another cluster of 3 double crochets, 1, 2 and 3. If you're in the UK, these are treble crochets for you. Chain 2. Now what we're going to do is we've got 3 clusters. We're going to put 2 double crochets in here, 1 and 2, because we're going to tighten our magic circle, tighten it up, and ta-da, you end up with a square. Now remember we done a chain of 5. What you're going to do is you're going to count 1, 2, 3 stitches, and you're going to slip stitch, put your yarn over and just pull through, and that is going to complete your center square. It will go square. Now I like to keep doing all my work to start each row inside a corner. So I'm going to pull my stitch up a little bit. It's going to let me go across into that corner there, just slip stitch through, and that keeps me right in the middle of that corner. We're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, that is going to be 1 double crochet and your 2 chain. That double crochet will be the last one of your cluster in that corner. So into the corner here, you're going to put 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. You're going straight over to this corner, no chains or anything. Go straight into here. I found that if you do a chain in between your clusters, it makes your blanket wavy. Now you saw at the beginning how big my blanket was, and there was no waves in the blanket. It kept its shape, it was nice and square. So into this corner, you're going to put 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. That's your cluster made. From now on, we'll call this a cluster. Chain 2 and do 1 more cluster into this corner. It's 1, 2, 3 double crochets. You're going to go straight over to this corner. You're going to put 1 cluster, 2 chain and 1 cluster into this corner, just the same way we have here. So do your 3 double crochets, 1, 2 and 3, chain 2, 1, 2 and 3 double crochets, 1, 2 and 3, and you're getting a nice little square. You're going to move over to this corner and do the same. 2 clusters, so 3 double crochet, 2 chain and your second cluster for the corner, 2 and 3. Now again, remember we did a chain of 5. That is your 3rd double crochet of your corner. So into the corner space you're going to put 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. Then you're going to slip stitch into the 3rd stitch in the chain. Count 1, 2 and 3. Push your hook through, pull your yarn through and pull through. So that is your 2nd round. So for the 3rd round, again, I'm going to pull my stitch up a little bit. I'm going to slip stitch into this corner and slip. It keeps me in the middle of the corner. What it does is you don't get an ugly joining line up your blanket by keeping all your stitches when you join it in the corner. So I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So again, that is your last stitch of this row. So in here, that's a double crochet and 2 chain. So now you need to do a cluster. So do your cluster. That's 1, 2 and 3. You're going to go between these 2 clusters and make another cluster in there. 1, 2 and 3. Into the corner, 1 cluster, 2 chain and 1 cluster. That's So 1, 2, 3, 2 chain, 1, 2, and your next cluster, 1, 2, and 3. So into the chain space between these two clusters, you're going to make your next cluster, 1, 2, and 3. And this is what we have. It's going to take you to your next corner. So in the corner, 1 cluster, 2 chain, and 1 cluster, 1, 2, and 3, 2 chain, 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 3 stitches. Do your cluster into the next space, into this space in between these two clusters. You'll only ever make your clusters in these spaces, 1, 2, and 3. You'll move to the next corner, 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, 1, 2, and do another cluster into the corner, 1, 2, and 3. 1 cluster in to the space between these two, 1, 2, and 3. We're back to the corner again. We're going to put 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and then into the 3rd stitch in the chain, 1, 2, and 3, you're going to slip stitch. Make your stitch bigger, and into the chain space, slip stitch. That puts you right in the middle of that corner. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is what we have. We have our granny square growing nicely. Now, into here you'll do a cluster. You'll do a cluster into this space, 1 into this space, and then you'll be at a corner. You'll put 1 cluster, 2 chain, and 1 cluster. Now you can put 3 chains in the corner if you want to. Then you'll do a cluster, then your corner. 1 cluster, 2 chain, and 1 cluster for your corner. Then a cluster here, and do your corner, a cluster, and you'll finish with 2 double crochets and then slip stitch to your chain for your next round. So we're going to put a cluster into this corner, just the one, because we've got half of it done here. 1, 2, and 3. Do a cluster into the next space, 1, 2, 3 double crochets into the next space, 1, 2, and 3. So you're at the corner, 1 cluster, 2 chain, and 1 cluster. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1, 2, and do your next cluster in your corner. You'll do a cluster in between each of these ones, into the spaces, and then your corner, 1 cluster, 2 chains and 1 cluster. So we're doing our next corner, so that's 1 cluster, 2 chain and 1 cluster into the corner, and you'll continue to do this granny square as big as you want it. So now we're at the last corner. We're going to put 2 treble crochets, 1 and 2, into the 3rd stitch in your chain of 5, 1, 2 and 3. You're going to slip stitch, and that makes your next round complete. It will flatten, don't worry about it, it's just the yarn that I'm using. What you can also do, if you want, you can pull your stitch larger and slip stitch in here. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then if you want you can turn your work. It's up to you. Some people like to turn their work and some people don't, so it's up to you. Each round you can turn your work and start working back the other direction, but I don't. I think it's just as pretty done like this. You can, so it's up to you if you want to turn your work and come back the other direction. Like this, you'll just do your cluster in here and work into each space, or you can just continue to go around and around in the same direction. It's up to you. So what will happen with your square is you've got 1 here, and then you've got your corners, then you've got your corners again and you've got 1 cluster in between, then you've got your corners again and you've got 2 clusters. So your next round you'll have your corners and you'll have 3 clusters in between, and you'll just continue around and around and around until your square is as big as you want it to be. It's up to you if you want to put 2 or 3 chains in the corner. It just means you'll have bigger spaces here. I like 2. It's a personal preference because it keeps all the spaces the same when you go around. And as you can see, you'll just keep going around and around and around. I'll find the middle. So there's my middle, and I don't have any chains in between. So I started with my little star in the middle in my 4 corners, then I had 1 cluster, then 2, then 3. As my square grows, you can see the way it's growing, and it doesn't matter. I didn't change the way I went. I kept going around and around the same way. So this side of the blanket is just as pretty as this side, but sometimes with a granny square it's preference. You can either put 3 or 2 stitches in your corners. Now to finish off the blanket, what I did was I put 1 double crochet into every stitch. So I'll show you how to finish off your blanket. I'm going to do a chain of 3, 1, 2 and 3. You don't need to do a chain of 5 this time because we're going to work we're going to work double crochets all the way along, and we'll just slip stitch to that one. So into here we're going to put 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. You're going to chain 2 and put 3 more double crochets into the corner, as if you were doing your clusters. Now we're going to put a double crochet into every stitch along, so make sure you start with that little stitch that's there. You're going to put 1 double crochet into every stitch along. We're not going to go into the chain space, we're just going to do the stitches. 1 double crochet into every stitch. All the way along your end. Now you can do lots of little granny squares this size if you want, and sew them all together into a blanket. So 1 into here. Now we'll do our cluster just as normal in the corner. Your 3 double crochets, 1, 2 and 3. Your chain 2, 1, 2, I'll move that out of the way so you can see what's going on, and 3 double crochets again into the corner. Now put 1 double crochet into each stitch. Make sure you start with that stitch right there, and 1 all the way around, and that's what you'll do all the way around your square, no matter how big you've made it. 1 double crochet into each stitch. That's no matter how big you've made your granny square. And you'll just continue like that around your blanket. When you get 1 stitch into each stitch all the way along, and when you get to the corner, put 1 cluster, 2 chain and 1 cluster into there, and then 1 stitch into the top of every stitch, 1 double crochet into every stitch along. You'll do your corner, 1 stitch into every stitch all the way along, and then you'll just slip stitch into the top of this one to finish your blanket. You can do more than 1 of these rounds around your blanket if you want to do that. So when you're at the end, you're just going to slip stitch into the top chain of 3 of that first one that you did, and that will complete your square. Now you can make it as big as you want it to be, and there you go, you've got your little square. You can make these squares as small as you like. You can make them that size, or you can make them absolutely huge like this one. You can make them really big like this one. And like I said, I just changed from that darker pink to a lighter pink, and I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. I put a row of double crochet along the end, and I threaded in some ribbon, and I got my bow on Amazon. It's a crocodile clip hair bow, and you get them in packs of 2. You can buy lots and lots of them as a big set, and you get 2 of each, because I think it's for putting in a child's hair. It's really pretty, and that is how you do this beautiful granny blanket. I'm going to raise this up again so you can see it. I'll put my smaller one to the side, and that is how you do this beautiful blanket. Now if you want to keep it dainty, just use a really small hook and it'll keep it nice and dainty like this, just the same as that one. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and if you click on the bell icon, YouTube will tell you when I put up another tutorial. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Now, did you like my new intro? Leave a little comment what you think about my new intro. I had that intro made for me by a young man named Mark Dunsmore. Mark has been my son's best friend since high school, and he got himself a music degree at Aberdeen University. And Mark composed the music that's on that intro. Even though it's just a little snippet, it's amazing. I think it's fantastic. And he also picked a few of little snippets from some of my videos. He mixed them together, put the music on, and did all that little click for me. Just reminding everyone to click on the subscribe button, click on that bell icon, and give a thumb up as well if you like the video. If you have a YouTube channel and you're looking for an intro, I'll put some of the details for Mark down in the description box. And he composes a lot of music, and he's even got some of it on Spotify. I'll put the link for Spotify as well. Go and have a listen to it. It's absolutely amazing. He's an amazing composer, and I hope in the future that I can say I knew him. He's famous. He's famous now, and I know him. And if you're looking for anything for your YouTube channel as an intro, or even soft background music while you do crochet or any other craft, I know a lot of people like to have a soft background music, then just click on the little links in the bottom and you can have a little email or have a little chat with Mark. Mark does the music. It belongs to Mark because it's Mark that's done the music. He's a great guy, and I'm just taking this 5 minutes just to give him a little shout out as well. His name is Mark Dunsmore, and I'll put all the links for Mark down in the description box. So look at this. Look at this. This is a spiral blanket. You just go around and around and around with this. Don't think for a minute, I'm never going to be able to make that. You can. All it is a couple of chains, UK treble crochets. If you're in the USA, this is a double crochet, a couple more chains, more stitches, couple chains, more stitches, and you go around and around and around and around. And look at this. This is one ball and a tiny little bit of these mandala yarn cakes. You can use anything. So I'm going to show you how to do this spiral fillet blanket. It's just, it goes around, I can't stop saying it, it goes around and around. And look at that. And the further you go, the more stitches you have in between each chain. It's brilliant. You can make it huge if you want. It's really, really pretty. The one thing I'm going to tell you is, if you send me a message and say my blanket's curling, it is because you're going around and around. It won't stay curled. It will flatten. Look at mine. Mine's is all flattening out. And then I'll show you how to do this stitch, how to do the pattern, and then I'll show you how to finish it off as well. Now, I've still got some of mine to do on this one, but I will show you how to finish it off. Oh, the clattering noise. Look at this. Someone sent me these. My friend Pauline. I've got a lady and her name is Pauline, and she just sends me a little text and she'll say, I'm sending you a little gift. You'll get it from Amazon in a few days. Now it's a quilt pin. Ooh. Yeah, this quilt pin has got these little stitch markers on them. Look at that. It says Crochet Diva. And on here there's a little ball of wool. There's a pair of scissors. These are really pretty. There's a little pair of scissors. There's some buttons. There's some buttons and a little measuring tape. But you can get them on Amazon. Look at that. It is really, really pretty. And they're little stitch markers. I love them. But you know what? You can attach these to your mobile phone as well. Or you can attach them to your zippers. They're not, what am I like? You're not just using them for stitch markers. You can use them for lots of other things. And they're very conveniently on this pin. I love this pin, by the way. This is absolutely, I love it. It's like a quilt pin. It's lovely. But anyway, Pauline, thank you very much for these. I really appreciate them. They're so much better and less fiddly than those little ones that I've been using. Even though I like the little light bulb pins, these are so much easier. And look at that, they hang in your work. Brilliant. The reason I've got this on it, it's just showing me where my last sort of row finishes and then the next one starts. It goes around and around this blanket. I'll pop these off to the side. Now it goes round and round. And one row you'll have, I've got 22 stitches, and then it goes straight over to the next round and it's 26. There is no chain 3 and then another round. You just go round and round and round and round. And I'm going to show you how to make this a beautiful blanket. It will flatten out if you smooth it all out like that, and it's really, really pretty. So I'm going to use this. I was donated this, and it's a kiddie's kaleidoscope, and it's done by Signet. So I'm going to show you how to do the sample with this. I think it will show up the pattern really, really nice. So you can use whatever yarn you like. Now I have got, this is a double knitting, and for my sample again I'm using a 4mm crochet hook. This is a UK 4mm hook. So I'm going to show you how to do this spiral fillet blanket. So I'm going to start off with a magic knot, and how you do a magic knot is just like a big slip knot. I just wrap it around my hand like this. This is my tail end here. I'm going to put my hook in and just pull that yarn through that loop. I'll just give that a little pull. Get my working yarn and just bring that loop in. And I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. So into the loop I'm going to put 10 treble crochets, and that chain of 3 makes number 11. So if you're in the USA, this is a double crochet. So into the ring, and we're going to put 10 treble crochets into this ring. You can pull it a little bit smaller if you like. So altogether we need 11 treble crochets. Your chain is number 1. So I've got my 11 treble crochets. I'm going to pull this tail end, just pull it in so you can go into a circle with this, and into the top, just going to slip stitch into the top of that chain of 3 like this. So I've got my 11 treble crochets. So I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now right at the bottom of that chain, in that little space, I'm going to put another treble crochet. I'm going to increase all my stitches. So into the next stitch I'm going to put 2 treble crochets all the way around. So 2 into that stitch, 2 into the next stitch all the way around. So we should have 22 stitches. So I've got myself a little stitch marker that I'm going to use. You don't really need one, but if you're a beginner and you want to know where the row starts, then you can use a stitch counter. But it doesn't matter because we're going to go around and around and around and around. It won't really matter. But anyway, I'm going to close my round off. I've got 22 stitches now. So I'm going to close my round off. Just slip stitch into the top of that chain of 3. Just like that. Now I'm going to chain 2, 1 and 2. So all your stitches are in sets of 2 all the way around, and I've got 22 stitches. I want to use the top of this next one and then the space in between my sets of 2 stitches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch into this next space. Just slip stitch over into that one. I'm going to do a chain of 3, 1, 2 and 3. Now into the space, so remember that you've got sets of 2. Into that space I'm going to put 2 treble crochets. Into that space, that's 1 and 2. I'm going to chain 1. Now into the next stitch. So the stitch above this post, we're going to skip it and we're going to the next stitch and we're going to do a treble crochet into the next stitch. Then into the space that's between your 2 stitches, your little group of 2, we're going to put 2 treble crochets, 1 and 2. Chain 1 and you're going to skip the stitch that's right above that post. Now it might look as if you're going to skip that one, but it's not. There is a stitch there. There is a stitch there, and make sure that's the one above that post that you skip. And you're going to put a treble crochet into the next stitch. And then 2 into the space beside it. 1 and 2. Going to chain 1. Skip the stitch above that post and we're going into the stitch that's above this post and then 2 into the space, and you can clearly see where your 2 stitches are. We're using 1 stitch and then 2 into the space, and this is what's going to start creating our spiral. So the stitch above that post, you skip it and then we're going to go into the next one, but we need to chain 1. Remember that chain 1 before you do these sections. So 1 above the stitch and 2 into the chain space, 2 into the space, chain 1, skip that stitch that's right there and work this one above the second post in your little cluster there of 2, and then put 2 into the space, and chain 1, and what that's creating is sets of 3, and then you've got a chain space, a set of 3, a chain space and a set of 3, and as you work your blanket, these sets will become, the next one will be 4 in a chain space, the next row will be 5 in a chain space, then 6 and 7, and that is going to create that spiral around with these chain spaces. Once we've done about 10 rows, we'll change the chain to 2 chains to stop your blanket from going right away. Chain 1, so you're putting 1 into the top of there, you're skipping that little stitch, one into there, and two into that chain space. That's one and two. Now you're going to chain one, remember that chain one, and you're going to slip stitch to the top of this chain of three that we've got here. Just slip stitch to close the circle. So now we've got groups of three. I want you to slip over to that one. We've got groups of three now. You can see your groups of three stitches. So we need to be above, so we need to be into this stitch here before the space. So the next round, our stitches, we're going to have 4 stitches. So what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch into that next stitch there. So slip one along, slip along one stitch like this. Now this is when you can put your marker in if you want. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. So what you're going to do now is you're going to put 1 into that stitch and 2 into the chain space, 1 treble crochet into that space, that stitch, and 2 into the chain space, and that one there is going to make our 4th stitch. So yarn over, because we've slip stitched over, that's a skipped our 1 stitch. So into the next one. Now you can put your marker in here if you want, and that, you know, that's going to be, that's been the start of that row. So we're going to put 2 into the chain space, 2 treble crochets. If you're in the USA, this is a double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, and work these 2 stitches and 2 into the chain space. So you're skipping that very first stitch right beside that post. So 1 into that stitch, 1 into the next stitch, and 2 treble crochets into the space, 1 and 2. Chain 1, and you're going to skip that stitch right beside that post. Skip that one and work the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2, then 2 into the chain space, and that's going to give you a set of 4. So as you can see, we've now got sets of 4. So we started with 1, then we've got 2, then we've got 3, and then we've got 4. And that's the way the blanket builds up. And as you're doing your chain and you've got your spaces, it's moving that little space from right here in the centre, and it'll go around and around. I'll show you my little one that I've got here that I'm keeping just to show you. I'll turn it round the right way. Now as you can see, we started with our 1s, we've got our 2s, 3s and 4s, and then it's 5. So when you join your round, as long as you slip stitch 1 over and then start your count, you should get this spiral with your and 2. Chain 1, remember your chain 1. Now we're going to slip stitch into this one with the chain of 3 where your little marker is. Just slip stitch into there to join that round. Now I'm going to take my stitch marker out. Take that out. So we've got sets of 4 stitches. We're going to slip stitch through that one and over to that one. you've got to remember and do your chain before you close around, and you've got to slip stitch past that one. It's like you're doing your missed stitch with your skip stitch. You slip that first one. So now we're above this third one in that set of 4. So now we're above the second stitch in that set. You're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. That's your first treble crochet. So into the next stitch you're going to put a treble crochet. That's 2. Into the next stitch put a treble crochet. That's 3. Now into the chain space you're going to put 2. That makes 4 and 5. So now our stitch count is 5. Chain 1, skip 1, and then you're going to work the next 3 stitches. That's 1 into that stitch, 1 into that stitch is 2, 1 into that stitch is 3, then 2 into the chain space makes 4 and 5. You'll always put 2 in the chain space. Chain 1, skip 1, and then you're going to work these 3 stitches and 2 into the chain space. So now your stitches are sets of 5. We went from 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Remember that chain to make your hole, and it will go around and around. You'll spiral around and around. So skip a stitch, and we're doing 3 treble crochets. 1, 2, 1 above the next one is 3, then 2 into the chain space makes 4 and 5. Chain 1, skip 1, do 3 treble crochets over the next 3 stitches. 1, 2 and 3. Put 2 into the chain space. 1 and 2, that makes 5. Now chain 1, remember and do that chain 1 before you slip stitch into the top of that chain of 3. So you're going to slip stitch into the top, the chain of 3. So remember to slip that next stitch, go into that next stitch, into the next stitch and slip it. And that gives you 1, 2, 3. And then do your chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. That's your first treble crochet. So you've got 3 more to make 4 and 2 in here to make 6. So your last round your stitches were 5. This round it's going to be 6 stitches. So that's your first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and 6 I'll go into the chain space. So that's 5 and number 6. Always put 2 into the chain space. So when you close your round, you'll slip stitch to close it. Then slip stitch along 1 more stitch. And that is what makes, and that's what offsets the chain spaces, is you doing that 1 slip stitch over. So now we've got sets of 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So we're on a chain 1. We're going to skip that stitch there and work these ones. So we're skipping that first post and then working along, and put 2 in the chain space. So we should have 6. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 into the chain space to make 6. That's 5 and 6. Chain 1, skip 1, and do your next set of 5. Or it's your next set of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're on a set of 6. So I'm going to chain 1 and slip stitch to the top of my chain of 3. Slip stitch to the top of there, and then slip stitch that next stitch right beside it. Slip stitch through there, and then we're going to do a chain 3, and we'll have 7 stitches in our set. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work along here. That makes 2, 3, 4, should have 5 in this part here, 5, and then 2 into the chain space to make our set of 7. Now, as you can see, you can grasp what we're doing. Remember your chain 1. Now you can really grasp what we're doing here. You can see that starting to go on the spiral. I don't need my little stitch marker, because you can clearly see where you're going, and that is going to turn that little spiral. It will go around. Now, until you've got to where you've got 9 in between your sets, then start doing 2 chain. So at the minute I'm at 7. So you can see we started with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then our set of 6, and then we'll have a set of 7. When you get to 9, that's when you'll start doing chain 2 in between. If you don't do that, your blanket will start to go up like a bowl and it won't straighten out. It will until you get to row 9. Now, if you are making this and your tension is different from me, don't worry if you have to start doing 2 chains in between your sets before I do. If your tension's tighter, you might have to start doing your 2 chains when you're on your sets of 7. Don't worry about that. And then you'll just continue your blanket. I'll show you my little sample again. I'll turn that around. Now, I got to number 9 before I started to put 2 chains in between my sets. So here I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm actually at number 11. So when I was at number 9, I started to put 2 chains in between my sets of stitches because my blanket was going up like this too much. Now keep smoothing it. You may have to start doing your 2 chains further down, so don't worry about that. If you have to do that, then you do that. It's up to you. I don't know what your tension's like. My tension is quite slack. So I got up to number 9. I got up to row 9. Then I started putting 2 chains in. Up until then, I only did 1 chain in between my sets of stitches. But once again, if your blanket starts to curl too much, put another chain. So I'm going to do what's called a half treble crochet in the UK. If you're in the USA, this is a half double crochet. Put your yarn over and go into that next stitch beside your space. Put it through, pull your yarn through, and you've got 3 loops on. Pull through all of those 3 loops. So what you're doing is This is your UK treble, and this is a half treble, so it's half that size. I'm going to do one more in the next stitch. So yarn over and go into your next stitch. You've got 3 loops. I'll pull that down a bit. You've got 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Into the next stitch, you're just going to do a UK double crochet. If you're in the USA, this is a single crochet. We're going to do 2. So do 1 into that stitch, 2 loops, and pull through, and 1 into the next stitch, 2 loops, and pull through. So as you can see, what it's done, it's brought that last row down into a small stitch. What you're going to do now is you're going to chain 3. Chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now this is my last row. My last row. I'm actually going to turn my work so the back of the blanket is facing me. I'm going to do 1 row of UK treble crochets. Now the reason I've turned it is when you're going around and around in a spiral, it makes the stitches on your last row kind of come up like this. So if we go the opposite way for 1 row, it's going to keep that edge straight. It won't tip forward like that once we've got the blanket finished. So for this 1 row only, your very, very last row, you'll shorten down your stitches the way I've just showed you. Rewind the video if you forget. Then chain 3 and turn your work around. So I've got the back end of the blanket facing me. That's the front of my blanket and it's facing away from me. I am going to put 1 UK treble crochet into every stitch. When I get to a chain space, I'll put 2 in the chain space and start straight away into the next stitch. 1 into every stitch. 1 full round of UK treble crochets. If you're in the USA, this is a double crochet. Now you might say, why did I shorten the stitches down? Because I didn't want, when you do your chain 3, you'll have too big a gap from down here up to here to do that last round, and you'll have a really strange area where you've gone from the spiral to a single row. So into the next stitch, all we're going to do all the way around the blanket is a treble crochet, and because we're going in the opposite direction, you won't have a curl around the edge. Your edge of your blanket won't be curled up like that. It'll stay straight. Now, if you make a much bigger blanket, you can keep going and going and going and just keep straightening out your blanket. If you make a great big one, you might end up with, because you can see what I mean here, it's kind of curled because we're going around in a spiral. But if we do that 1 row on the opposite, it's going to straighten that up nicely like that. Now, the bigger you make your blanket, you may get little folds like this in it. That is unavoidable in a blanket like this with this chain in it. It's kind of unavoidable, but it does flatten out. If you want to take a picture of your blanket, it will flatten. And if you've got it around a baby, it doesn't matter if it's got like a little bump. As you see, as it moves around, the little bumps just disappear. It won't stay there like that. It won't stay there. Look, see, it just flattens out. So I just want to bring that to your attention as well. So we're going to do our treble crochets all the way around. If you're in the USA, this is a double crochet. Just do 1 into every stitch. I'll work my way right round to that chain space and show you what I'm going to do in the chain space. Got my little ball of yarn, and this is the ball of yarn that I had my heart in. When I got this given to me, this was actually in it. This heart shape. I think it's fantastic. And I feel very guilty now that I've used it. I feel very guilty now that I've used it. I was keeping it as a prop because I think it's really pretty with that heart in the middle. So I'm going to go right around doing one UK treble crochet. That's a USA double crochet into each stitch, into the top of each stitch, all the way around. When I get to the chain space, I'll put 2 into the chain space and continue working. When I get to this chain space, I'll put 2 treble crochets into the chain space and continue working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work my way all the way around my blanket, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. And like I've said, you can do this as big as you like it or as small as you like it. If you want just a little small one, maybe a little bigger than the sample I've done, you can attach a little toy into the middle. Do you know, like those little teddy bear heads or the bunny rabbit heads? And you can make this into a little cuddly blanket for a little child. I'll throw that back over there, a little frisbee. So I'm going to work my way around just one row, this one last row. And what it does, as you can see, look at that, it's just making that last row nice and straight. It gives it a little edge as well on it. And look at that, it just straightens that little curl, because you can see the little curl there. It does go away, it really does. But because we're going that one row in the opposite direction, look at that, it straightens off that edge. And so I hope I've explained that enough. So I'm just going to go on to that first stitch after my chain space this time. We're not skipping any stitches and we're not doing any chain spaces. We're just continuing one treble crochet, or if you're in the USA, this is one double crochet into every stitch, all the way around the blanket. And as you can see, it just finishes off your blanket really nice. I'll get that done and I'll come back and show you what my blanket's like when it's completely finished. Is my spiral blanket all finished? It's really pretty. It's laying flat. The edge is flat like this. You can make this as big as you want, and it's so pretty. And like I said already, it's nice and just plain colours as well. You can see from the colourways of this, it would be really pretty if it was in lemon or even in red, and it shows you the different colours with this. And the pattern stands out absolutely amazing. And look at that. I hope you give this a try. It's easy, it's simple. You just go around and around and around, around and around. You're doing your stitches, you're doing 2 into your chain space, then your stitches, 2 into the chain space. You're skipping your 1, remember, and all you're doing is you're just going around and around like that. It's really, really easy. So thank you very much for watching. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to do this beautiful textured stitch. It is so easy. You do it with a single crochet and a double crochet, and that's it. That's all you do. You just repeat single crochet, double crochet, and it will make this beautiful pattern. This is great for using as placemats on the table. It's great for doing pot holders, you just put your hand over it and you can lift the lid off your pot, or you can put it on your hand and lift your pot, and it helps you to lift a hot pot as well. You can make blankets with it, scarves with it, anything you think your imagination can handle. So I'm going to show you how to do this beautiful texture pattern. Very, very easy. So I'm going to do my sample in some Red Heart soft baby steps. A 4-weight. That's Aran if you're in the UK. A 4-weight is like an Aran weight. So this is a 4-weight. So using a number 7 hook, if you're in the UK, this is a 4.5. This will give it a nice dense texture. Make it a nice thick blanket for the fall. You're going to do your chain in any number of stitches. Just do your chain in any number of stitches. Don't do your chain too tight. So just make yourself a chain. There is no stitch count. So I've got myself a little foundation chain done. Do not count the stitch on the hook. You're going to count 1, 2. Into the second stitch, you're going to do a single crochet. So push your hook through, put your yarn over and pull it through. You've got 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and come through those 2 loops. That's you done a single crochet. Into the next stitch, you're going to do a double crochet. So put your yarn over your hook and go into the next stitch. Pull your yarn through. You've got 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, come through 2 loops. Put your yarn over your hook again and come through those 2 loops. And that's you done a double crochet. Into the next stitch, you're going to do a single crochet. And into the next stitch, you're going to do a double crochet. So that's your yarn over one. Single crochet straight through, pull through, you've got 2 loops, yarn over and pull through 2. Your double crochet next, yarn over into the next stitch and do a double crochet. Then you'll do a single crochet into the next stitch, a double crochet into the next one, then a single into the next stitch and a double crochet into the next stitch. You'll do that all the way along your foundation chain, and it doesn't matter what stitch you finish on. So a single crochet, then a double crochet, then a single crochet, then a double crochet, all the way to the end. So I'm at my last 2 stitches. So I've done a single, so my next stitch is going to be a double, and my last stitch is going to be a single crochet. Now remember that you finished on a single crochet. You're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Now into that very first stitch there, that very first space, you're going to do a double crochet. So yarn over and through, pull your yarn through, yarn over, through 2 loops, yarn over and through 2 loops. Into the next stitch you're going to do a single crochet. So on the first row we done a single, a double, a single, a double all the way along. Now we're going to do, we finished on a single crochet, so now your next row is a double crochet, a single crochet and a double crochet. If you finished here on the end of your foundation with a double crochet, you'll chain 1 and you'll start your next row on a single crochet. You're going to start with the opposite of what you finished with. So I've done a single here, so into the single crochet on the bottom row I'm going to do a double. and on the double crochet on that row under there, I'm going to put a single, then a double, and then a single crochet. So you're working the opposite. Before we done a single and a double, a single and a double. Now we're doing a double and a single, a double and a single. So I've done a single to do a double. Now you can see the kind of scrunched up stitch. That's your double crochet. So you know to put a single on the top of it. And if you've got a small stitch, that's your single crochet, and you'll know to put a double crochet onto that one. So single and double, single into the next stitch, double into the next stitch, a single crochet into the next one, and then a double all the way along your project. Now I'm near the end, so I'm doing a single crochet, and I've got a double to do into my last stitch here. So because I finished on a double, I'm going to start on a single. So chain one and turn, and into that very first stitch, that chain one is not a stitch. So into that very first stitch, I'm going to do a single crochet. Because I finished that row on a double, I'm going to start on a single. So then we'll do a double crochet into the next stitch and a single crochet into the next one. You'll keep alternating your stitches. If you finish on a single crochet, you'll start your next row with a double crochet. If you finish on a double crochet, you'll start your next row on a single crochet. You do that for as many rows as you want. So when you go down to do the single crochet, it pulls your double crochet down, and it makes this beautiful sort of textured cluster. It clusters it up. It's really pretty. It's lovely for blankets, hats, scarves, pot holders, table placemats, cushion covers, lots and lots of things. It is so simple as well. So easy to remember. Single crochet, double crochet. And then you'll do a double crochet, single crochet on your next row. So I'll be finishing this row on a double crochet into that stitch. So because I finished on a double, to chain one and turn, that's not a stitch. Right into that very first stitch, I'm going to do my single crochet and then do my double, and we're going to single and double all the way along. And do that for as many rows as you want, and you get this beautiful textured stitch. I'll show you this one that I've been doing. You get this beautiful texture in your stitch. I'll stretch that open and you can see what it's like. You can use any size of hook, you can use any thickness of yarn. Try it with thick yarn and a big hook, and it'll open it up and it'll be quite lacy. So you can change the texture of your work by changing the hook size. If you want it more lacy and light, use a bigger hook, and if you want it nice and thick and dense for the winter, then use a smaller hook and your thicker yarn. So thank you very much for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Now today I'm going to show you how to make this really pretty blanket. It's a great stitch. You can make this any size you like. It's really easy as well. It's an easy stitch. It's only a 1 row repeat, and it's made up of little clusters, 2 little clusters. I'll show you how to do all these little loops on it. This is a great way to start a blanket. I've started doing like these little loops running along with some of my blankets that I've been making, and it makes the edge really pretty, and I've got the top of it's got the same little loops. Now the way this is crocheted, you don't even need a fancy side. It's got a really nice edge along each side of the blanket. Now I did 20 of the little loops. You'll see that when I show you how to make the blanket. I've done 20 of those, and I've done 38 rows. I've done 38 rows on this really pretty little pram blanket. You can use this for a pram, or you can use it for one of those baby carriers or a car seat cover. Make the chain as long as you want it, and you can crochet as many rows as you like. So I'm going to show you how to make this pretty little blanket. So to do this little cluster blanket, I'm using a 5mm crochet hook. That's a 5mm, and I'm just using a big ball of double knitting pink yarn. You can use any double knitting yarn that you want. So I'm going to start with a slip knot. So you just do your slip knot whatever way that you want it. I just wrap it around my fingers, push it through, and then just pull. And you get a little slip knot. Put it on your hook. Now what I'm going to show you to do is the little loops that we had on the bottom of the blanket. So I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wrap the yarn around your hook twice, like this. Then you're going to go into that very first stitch that you done. Into that stitch, like that, and pull through. So you've got 4 loops on, and you've got that little chain there. So yarn over, and tighten it up just a little shade. Stitches are too slick. So yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So you've got this little loop like that. Chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yarn over twice. Now you're going in, can you see that stitch there and that stitch there? It looks like a V. It's like a V. Go through both of those like that. Yarn over and pull through. You've got 4 stitches. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. And this is what's making those, a little pair of spectacles, look at that. This is what's making those little loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yarn over twice, and then in to both those stitches, the one that's there and the one that's there. This one and this one. Pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over through 2 loops, and yarn over through 2 loops. Now that's going to make the loops for our stitches to put our clusters in, and it's going to give your blanket a nice little edge. So you make as many of these as you want. So that's 5. Yarn over twice, through those 2 stitches right where the joint is. Pull through, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, and yarn over through 2. I'll show you once more. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, yarn over twice through those 2 where your chain ends, the very first 2 stitches. Push through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops, and yarn over through 2 loops. In the UK this is called a double treble crochet. Yep, a double treble crochet, and if you're in the USA or another country it's a treble crochet, this one. So continue making those little loops like that for the length that you want your blanket to be. So I'll do that and I'll come back and show you what to do next. Just remember your yarn over twice through the top of that loop there with those 2 stitches, pull through again, and that makes your little loop. So make yours as long as you want. So I've got 20 loops on my little piece here that I've done. I've got 20 little loops all along. You make yours as wide as you make it, as long as you want. It's up to you. Make it as long as you want. Now we need to start. We're going to work in the spaces, each of the spaces, and we need to start in that space. So we're going to just put your hook right through, pull your yarn through, and slip stitch so that you're inside that space with that slip stitch. Now what we're going to be using is a treble crochet. If you're in the UK it's a treble crochet. If you're in any other country it's a double crochet, and we're going to be making clusters inside these spaces. So just put your yarn over and go into the space and pull through. Yarn over and pull through 2 stitches, just 2. Leave that stitch on your hook, yarn over and into the space again and pull through. Yarn over and through 2 loops. So yarn over and through all 3 loops. You're going to chain 1, yarn over and back into the same space to make your second cluster. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Leave that stitch on the hook. Yarn over and through the loop again. Yarn over and through 2 loops. You've got 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches, all 3 loops. So that makes your first double cluster. We're going to move into this one. So yarn over and go straight into the next one. Pull your yarn through. You've got 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over through 2 loops. Yarn over back into the space. Yarn over through 2 loops. Yarn over and through all 3 loops, and that makes your first cluster in this one. Chain 1, yarn over and in there again. Yarn over and through 2 loops, leave that on your hook, and again through 2 loops. You've got 3 stitches left. Yarn through and pull it through all of those loops. So that makes your second cluster. Don't worry, once it's all done it'll all pull itself together, so don't worry about that. Yarn over and into the next one. Yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over and again, through 2 loops, yarn over through all 3. That's your first cluster done. So we're making double clusters. Chain 1, and we're going to do our next little double cluster. So yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over and through again. You've got 3 loops here. yarn over and pull through all 3, and that makes your next cluster. So we're putting 2 double clusters in each of these loops. Yarn over, through 2 loops, yarn over, through 2, oops, and then through all 3. Chain 1, yarn over, through 2 loops, yarn over, again through 2 loops, and then through all 3. And that makes your next cluster, like that. And we're going to work our way all the way to the end. So it's yarn over and into the space, through 2 loops, yarn over, through 2 loops till you've got your 3, and pull through all 3, chain 1 and your second cluster. So you've got 3, yarn over and through the whole 3 loops. So I'm on my last one, my last little loop. So yarn over, do my first part in my cluster, chain 1 and do the second part of the cluster through there. Now this is what we've got. We've got our 2 clusters in each little loop. Now this is really easy. So what you do now is we're going on to the second row. You just repeat this, and we're going to go into the spaces in between our clusters. So chain 1 and turn. Now into that space put your 2 trebles, 1 chain and 2 trebles, but do it like the cluster. So yarn over, no chain, just that 1 chain, yarn over and into the space between your clusters. Pull through, you've got 3 on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, leave that one there, yarn over and through, pull through 2 loops, and we've got our 3 loops there, pull through all of them, chain 1 and back into that same space for your second cluster. So yarn over, through 2 loops and then through all 3. And that chain 1 that you done is going to do, that'll be your side as it goes up your blanket, and it'll keep your blanket edge nice and straight. So yarn over and into the next cluster, just skip that bit, make sure you're going into the next cluster and not the space between the clusters. We're going in between the clusters. So in between here, yarn over, pull through 2, leave that one on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, then pull through 3 stitches, chain 1, yarn over and into the same space, going to do another cluster, leave that stitch there, yarn over, through 2 loops and then through all 3 stitches. So you're making another cluster. So this cluster is going to separate this one, and the next one will separate that one, and that's where you get that really pretty pattern. So skip this space and we're going in between this cluster again. So this is how my little blanket's looking now. And I'm on the last set here. So it's yarn over and we're going in between the clusters. Keep that stitch on there, yarn over, through 2 loops, and then come through all 3 stitches, chain 1, yarn over, and we'll do our next cluster, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, leave that stitch there, and pull through 2, and then come through all 3 like that. Looks like a piece of lace, doesn't it? It's really pretty. Now what you're going to do now is chain 1, turn your work, yarn over, and we're going to go straight into that space in between the clusters again, yarn over, through 2 loops, leave your 2 stitches there, or your 2 loops, yarn over, and we'll do our second stitch in a cluster, yarn over, through all 3 stitches, chain 1, and yarn over and do our second part of our cluster, leave the stitch on, yarn over, and through 2 loops, then through all 3, and that's you got your next cluster. We're going to move to the middle of this one, yarn over, through, so you've got 3 loops, yarn over through 2, yarn over, back through the space, yarn over through 2 loops, then yarn over through all 3, chain 1, that's a 1 cluster done, yarn over, through the space, through 2 loops, yarn over, through the space, through 2 loops, and then through all 3. And this is what your little blanket's going to look like. You just keep repeating that row. Just keep repeating that row. You have nice little bumps along the end of your blanket. You've got your nice little loops running along the bottom. This is my little blanket almost finished. I've done it 20 loops across, and I've done 38 rows. I've done 38 rows of that little cluster stitch, and look at that, isn't it really pretty? And it crochets up really fast. If you need a blanket that's fast and pretty, then this is it. Look at this, it's really pretty. I'm going to show you how to finish off the top of it. It's a beautiful pink, this as well. Now we did the chain, if you remember, along the bottom, and then we started doing our clusters. So I'm just going to finish the top of this off. It won't be exactly the same because we don't have these stitches going across this bit, but we will have all the chains on. So I've got my crochet hook. I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I'm going to slip stitch in between each section of your clusters. Slip stitch, don't crochet it. So just put your hook right through the gap. So we're going through the gap, not the stitch, through the gap, and just pull your yarn through and slip stitch. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, into the next space, into the big space, pull through your stitch and slip stitch, and chain 5, 5, into the space and slip stitch. Don't crochet it, don't do a single crochet, do a slip stitch, and that's going to put all your little chains along the bottom or the top, whatever you want that side to be, just the same as this. So I've done all my little chain of 5s and slip stitch into this space between the clusters. So I'm on my last one, 3, 4, and 5. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slip stitch into the corner. So I've just slip stitched into the end of that. I'll cut a tail off and just pull my yarn through like that and secure it there. I'm going to push my needle through and just pull this end through into these side parts. Oops, I pulled it back out. Push it in, down a little bit. Just weave it through the ends. Push my hook through there and just weave it. Then I'm going to cut that off. So that's a little blanket all finished, and it's really, really pretty. Look at that. It's a really pretty stitch, and it's easy. It's easy, and it crochets up. And it crochets up really fast. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to do this. This is called a grid stitch. It's really pretty. It makes beautiful blankets. With this I've been using Red Heart Soft Baby Steps. It's really soft. I really love this yarn. It really is. The colour, it doesn't have a name. It's 00005. Really soft, and it's 100 grams that you get in the ball, and that is 164 meters. This is a James C. Brett Baby Twinkle yarn. Look at that little sparkle in there, but it's really soft, not jaggy at all. The stitch count for that grid pattern is 4 plus an extra 3 at the end. So your chain will be chains of 4. So I'm going to do a slip knot. Just put that onto my hook. Put your first stitch on the way that you feel comfortable doing it. So I'm going to do my chain, and I'm going to do it in sets of 4. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3 and 4. So I've done my chain. I'm going to do this a little bit bigger than that square that I showed you. So I've done my chain in sets of 4. So I'm going to add an extra 3. 1, 2 and 3. Now on your chain, I'm going to turn it around so we get a nice even bottom on the blanket. I'm going to turn the chain around. Now you can see those little lines. These are the lines that we're going to work in. If you turn your chain around, you've got your foundation chain there, and if you turn it around like that, you'll see these little lines running along. That's your stitches, and that's the ones we're going to use. So into the second one, don't count that loop. Count 1 and 2 into that second loop there. So just put your hook through and pull your yarn through. Yarn over and pull through. If you're in the USA, that's a single crochet. So that little line there is the next stitch. So we'll do a double crochet in there. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to skip 2 stitches and then do a double crochet in the next stitch and 1 into the next stitch. So double crochet and double crochet into the next stitch. I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, skip 2 and then do a double crochet into the next stitch and a double crochet into the next stitch. So it's 2 double crochets, 2 chain, and you're skipping 2. So it's all 2s, chain 2, skip 2 and then double crochet into the next stitch and a double crochet into the next stitch all the way to the end, and you should finish on 2 double crochets. So I've done my chain of 2, skip 2, and my last 2 stitches are going to be a double crochet and a double crochet. Now if you've got an extra stitch, just pick it out because you might have just miscounted as you've done your chain. So this is what we have. We have this little double chain. What you're going to do now is you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and turn your work around. Now into the top of that double crochet, we're going to do a UK treble crochet. If you're in the USA, that's a double crochet it's called. So into the top of this stitch, you're going to do a treble crochet. So your chain of 3 counts as your first treble crochet. Chain 2, 1, 2. Skip over this space here, and you're going to put a treble crochet into this double crochet and 1 into this one. So a treble crochet into that stitch and a treble crochet into that stitch. Chain 2, just like you did on the bottom, but instead of doing double crochets, we're doing trebles. Skip that chain space and do a treble crochet and a treble crochet. So you're skipping these 2 stitches. So 1 treble crochet into that stitch and 1 treble crochet into that stitch. Chain 2, 1, 2, skip these 2, so skip the chain space and put a treble crochet on top of that stitch and 1 on top of that stitch. So skip that chain space, 1 treble crochet and 1 into the next stitch. Chain 2, 1, 2, skip the 2 over the chain space and 1 treble crochet and 1 treble crochet. Look how the light's catching that sparkle. It's really pretty. All the way to the end. So I'm on my last section, chain 2, skip those 2 stitches where the chain is, and I've got 2 stitches left. I'm going to put a treble crochet on the top of that stitch and a treble crochet on the top of that stitch. Now these are the 2 rows that you'll keep repeating. A little tip, make sure you've got 2 treble crochets in each section. Make sure you've got 2. There's no point in not looking and you've only got 1 here and you find out 5 rows up that you've missed one somewhere. Now you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Just chain 1. Now we're going to repeat the double crochet row. So right into that first stitch above that treble crochet, you're going to do a double crochet. Do 1 on top of the next stitch and then chain 2, 1, 2, skip the chain and put a double crochet on top of this stitch and a double crochet here. So you'll always have chains on top of chains and stitches on top of stitches. So it's just remember that here you're doing a double crochet and a double crochet next. Chain 2, 1, 2, skip the chain space and do a double crochet and a double crochet on top of the next stitch. Chain 2, double crochet and then double crochet on top of the next stitch. Chain 2 and then do your double crochets all the way to the end. So I'm at my last 2 stitches. I've done my chain 2. I'm going to skip that chain space and do a double crochet into that next stitch and a double crochet into the top of that chain of 3. get that round a bit. It's twisted itself in. A double crochet into the top of that chain of 3. So now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. That counts as your first treble crochet. Turn your work, and now we're going to repeat the pattern. So we're doing a treble crochet into the next stitch. To chain 2, 1, 2, go over to your next stitches. You're going to skip these chains and do a treble crochet into this stitch and a treble crochet into this stitch. Treble crochet and a treble crochet. Chain 2, 1, 2, then treble crochet and a treble into the next stitch. Chain 2 and on we go all the way to the end. You should finish with 2 treble crochets, and your next row coming back will be your chain 2 and a double crochet and a double crochet, and pretty soon you will have this. Just make sure that you're doing 2 stitches when you do your 2, especially with your double crochets. You can't really see the double crochets. If you stretch it out, you can see where your double crochets are down here on this row, and what makes it look like a grid is you've got these chains together like this, and it makes it like a grid stitch or like a chain link fence almost as well. This is what it looks like in that James Seabury Twinkle yarn. It is so pretty, and this crochets up so fast because you're only doing 2 stitches and 2 chain and 2 stitches. It crochets really fast as well. It really is. And this is the other one that I was doing. This is the one that's in the Red Heart Soft Baby Steps. And you can get this for $1.99 on Lovecrafts for a 100-gram ball. That's a great price to pay for this yarn, and it's super soft. It really is, and it would make a really cheap blanket as well. And it's so pretty. It really is. So give this stitch a try. This is called the grid stitch. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Now look what I've been making. I'm going to pick this up and show you this stitch. Look at that stitch. You need to see it from the side like this. It's a really deep set stitch. It's the same on both sides. I'll turn it that way. Hopefully you can see it more that way. Look at that. Look at that. It's really pretty. Now I've got this amount of yarn still to use on this inner square of this blanket, and I'm going to show you what it is. I got all of this sent to me. This is the yarn that I'm using, this one here. There were 6 great big balls in this. And this is a So Crafty brand. It's a Aldi yarn. It's from Aldi's. And this one is called Mardi Gras. And it's a rainbow yarn. There's 200 grams in each one of these. Now, there's this one. This one is really soft. This one is called a ombre yarn. And it's a Sundance. There's 200 grams in that as well. And there is a knitted pattern in behind there on that one. This one, it's knitted again. It's a cable knit pattern with that. So I got this. I'm going to come up just a little bit. I got this from a friend called Sharon Jones, and Sharon sent me quite a few donations of yarn, and she sent me these, so I'll put that one back in there just now. This is absolutely amazing. Now, I did video it as a Happy Meal, but when my webcam broke, it wiped the videos that I hadn't edited, and when I deleted the software to try and put it back in again, it deleted the videos that were still inside the program. So unfortunately, I didn't get to do this as a Happy Meal, but it is a Happy Meal. It's wonderful. This, she got it sent to me from Aldi's. I'll pop that aside, and I'm going to show you how to do this really deep stitch. Now, this is an amazing stitch for speed. It's a really quick blanket. If you need a blanket made in a hurry, now look at this. This has only taken me a few hours to do this. I'm using a 8mm crochet hook. Now, I don't have one of the nice shaped hooks like this. I don't have one this size in a 8mm. So I'm having to go back to using this style of crochet hook for this blanket. So once I've got my inner square done, I'll show you how to do the border like I did on that other one. I'll pop that aside just now. So I'm going to use this to show you how to demonstrate that stitch. I'll just pop that back up there on the side. So I'm going to use a smaller hook. Now this is an Addy Swift Max crochet hook. And look at the shape of this. This is brilliant if you've got any dexterity problems, if you've got any problems with arthritis. I've been using this for about a week and a half now, this shape of hooks. They are a little bit expensive buying them one at a time. So that's all I've been doing. I've just been maybe buying one a week or one every maybe two at the end of the month. That's what I'll be doing with these. This is a 4mm hook. Now this is the Addy Swift Max because it's got a longer shaft on it. I've got another one and the shaft is smaller, but if you're going to get these to try them, get one that's a popular size, maybe like a 4.5 or a 5, whatever you use the most often to try it. They are about £7 each. I got mine from Lovecrafts and they are an investment, but I really like them because it just fits into your hand like this. Now, the way you hold it is the way you would hold a spoon if you were a child and scooping up some of your dinner. The smaller Addy Swift, this is a Max. The smaller Addy Swift has a fatter handle and it's fatter here, but the shaft of the hook is much smaller, and I found that my stitches fell off the hook sometimes because it was too small. So anyway, that is the hooks for everyone that's been asking about the hooks that I've been using. So this blanket has got no stitch count. There's no stitch count for it at all. It's a 1 row repeat. It's only 1 row and you just keep repeating the row. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a chain. I'm going to do a sample. This is so easy. And this grows so quick. It doesn't matter what yarn that you're using at all. Now, into each stitch, I'm going to do what's called a UK half treble crochet. If you're in the USA, that's a half double crochet. So put your yarn over and I'm going into the second stitch in my chain. Now, the noise you can hear in the background is Muttley. He's playing with his toys. So I'm just going to do this into every stitch. It's a UK half treble crochet. If you're in the USA, it's a half double crochet, one into every stitch. So I'm going to do my last half treble crochet into my last stitch, and this is what I've got. Now what we're going to do at the beginning and the end of every row, we're going to do a half treble crochet. So I'm going to chain one and turn, and right into that very first stitch I'm going to do a half treble crochet. Now to get that really deep, now to get this really deep stitch like this, look how deep that is. It's almost doubled over the way it is, and it's so pretty. It is so pretty in any yarn, and it's a nice loose stitch. The bigger the hook you use, the quicker this will work up. So to get that ridge, what we're going to do is every stitch, this is the top of your work. Now you're going to go into this side loop all the time. At the beginning we'll do a half treble crochet, at the end we'll do a half treble crochet, but every stitch is going to be this side stitch, not the top loop. We're not going through the top like this, no. You're going through this little side stitch. What it's going to do is it's going to force this to the other side of your crochet, and you'll be crocheting along these lines here. You'll be crocheting along there, and what it does, you can see here, that's the top of my crochet. It pushes that part over like this. It pushes it to the other side when you're crocheting, and when you're crocheting this way, so if I do this row, it's going to push the top of my crochet that way. It almost folds over like that, and that's what it's doing and making this really nice rib. It makes a beautiful rib like this, and it's a nice deep stitch. It's beautiful for a blanket. It's beautiful, and it's really quick. So what we're going to do is a half treble crochet, but we're taking the stitch from the side, not the top. We're taking it from that front side stitch, and do your half treble crochet. The next stitch on the side, just hold your work to the side. Every stitch, a half treble crochet into that side stitch. And what it does, it's pushing that top part there of your blanket to that side and making that nice ridge. If you're looking for a quick blanket to make, a quick gift, try this in a pastel baby colour. It'll crochet really quickly if you use chunky yarn, or even super chunky, and a big hook. Now I know I've got quite a smallish hook for this, but I want to show you this sample, what it's like with a smaller hook. It's just as nice, and it's a nice compact stitch if you use a smaller hook. If you want it a lot lighter and airier, then you'll use a bigger hook. I'm just going to do one half treble crochet. If you're in the USA, that's a half double crochet. So what it's doing, it's pulling that side stitch up. Now I'm at the end. I'm not going to go through the stitch. I'm going through the hole that's here. You're going in the hole. Don't go through the top of the stitch. You're going to put one half treble crochet into that last stitch, chain 1 and turn, and look what it's done. That is so pretty already. It's quite a sort of stretchy stitch as well, so when you do your chain, make sure you don't do your chain too tight, and look at that. It really makes that stand up. Now this side is just flat for now, so when we do this row, it'll push the top of this stitch to that other side. So we're going to do right into the very first stitch. We've done our chain 1. We're going to do our half treble crochet. That keeps the edge of your blanket nice and straight. Now we're not going into the top loops of the stitches, we're going into that side one. So yarn over and catch that side stitch, front side stitch, and do your half treble crochets. Or if you're in the USA, this is a half double crochet on that front side stitch. So the stitch, that's the top of your work. We're working along the side, along this side here. And it makes a really nice deep ridge in your blanket. It's lovely for scrap. It's lovely for scarves and hats as well. It's so simple. This is it. This is the stitch. That's what you're going to repeat until your blanket's as big as you want it. And for a border, you can just do a simple treble crochet all around the blanket for a border. That's through my last stitch. So I'm at the end and I'm going into the hole, not through the top of the stitches. I'm actually going into that space to do my last double treble. Chain 1 and turn, and this is what it's done. Look at that. You've got that nice ridge on that side, and then again on that side. You'll just repeat the process, and that's it. So simple. Absolute beginners are going to love this. So I've done my chain 1, put my yarn over and go through that very first stitch and do my half treble crochet. Yarn over and slip up that side. There's the top of my work there. I'm going into these little side stitches all the way along, and you'll just keep repeating that. And I'm going to show you it's just as nice done with a smaller hook. You can use any kind of yarn you like. You can experiment with hook sizes. I'll show you something in just a moment. So I'm just taking up that side stitch, pull through all my loops, yarn over, through the side stitch and through the loops. We're not taking it from the top, it's from the side. And my very last stitch right into the end, keep my edge straight. I've done a few more rows and look what it looks like. It's really quick and it's really easy and it's really pretty as well. It's really pretty. It's a nice deep, you can see there how deep that goes. And if you're looking for a really quick baby blanket, even if you're a beginner, you can do this stitch and you'll get a really beautiful blanket. Now I've showed you in this yarn and a smaller hook just to show you can use any yarn and any size hook you want, and you'll get a big difference in doing a nice sort of thick, maybe TV blanket to wrap yourself up in, with this yarn. This is an Aran weight, but it's only a 4mm hook. And my big blanket, I'll zoom back down. And my big blanket, I've got my yarn all mixed up here. I've still got a few rows to do on this, and I'll do that. I'll make my stitch bigger. I don't want to lose it. So I'll get another few more rows out of this. And this blanket is, so far I've got 38 rows. I've got 38 rows so far. So I might have enough to get me up to 40 rows. I've got So I've got 70 stitches on my blanket. Now, a lot of people have told me that this yarn is quite scratchy. It's not the softest yarn, but if you put this into a sink, once you've made your garment, if you put it into the sink with some warm water and some fabric softener in it, it'll go really, really soft. Believe me, it does go really, really soft. So I'm going to do a few more rows on my blanket. I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 18, 20, 22, 24, 25, 26, 28. Yep, I've got 38 rows done. I'm going to do another 2 rows to take me to 40, and I'll come and I'll show you how I did the border on this blanket. So I'm going to put a border on my square, and what I've decided to do is I'm just going to do a fan. I'll do a fan evenly along my blanket, but I'm going to start down here a little bit so that I've still got the room to go around my corner. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. So into that same space, I'm going to put another 4 treble crochets. 1, 2, 3. So my chain's going to count as 1, and I'll need to put another 4 in. I'm going to do 5 altogether. So I'm going to move to the next space and just do a double crochet. I'll skip that little area and move into this next space, and I'll put 5 treble crochets. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Down into the next space with a single, along to the next one, just above that rib I'm going, and I'll put another fan in. So I'm going to put my little coloured fans in all the way along my blanket and all the way around. I'll put 2 in the corner. When I get to here, I'll put 1 here, and I'll put another one in this corner, and I'll slip stitch it on to there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Space it out evenly. A double crochet, that's a single crochet if you're in the USA, and then put my fan in to the middle of the next one. 3, 4, and 5. And that's what we're going to do. So we'll have a fan in the middle of each section. We'll have a fan, a double crochet, a fan, and a double crochet in a fan. And that's the way we're going to work along this blanket. 2, 3, 4, 5. So into the middle of this section, a double crochet, and into the middle of this section we'll put our 5 treble crochets. and 5. Into the middle of the next section, double crochet, and into the middle of the next section and do our fan. So I'm at the corner of my blanket and I'm just going to do my double crochet, and then right into the corner I'm going to put 7 treble crochets for the fan to get around this corner. Instead of 5, I'm going to do 7. See how that looks. Five, 6, and 7. So that's brought me right around the corner. So I'm going to skip 2 stitches and I'm going to do my double crochet. I'm going to skip another 2 stitches, do a fan, skip 2, double crochet, skip 2 and do a fan, and that should come out just the same as the side has. So skip 2 and put 5 treble crochets in for my fan. Go into that stitch. That's 1, 2, see what it looks like, 3, 4 and 5. Skip 2, 1, 2, double crochet, skip 2, and then we'll do a fan. And we'll have a look and see if that's spaced out. That's spaced out quite evenly, the same as this one. So I'm going to continue to do that all the way around. When I get to the corners, I'll put 7 in. I'll put 7 treble crochets in to get me around the corner. And then I'll go back to doing a fan, or a double crochet, a fan, a double crochet, and a fan all the way down this side. And then I'll work my way up this other end. And then I should meet myself at this corner here. And I'll put 7 in to get myself around this corner. I'll do a double crochet and then I'll join on to that fan. So I'll get that done and I'll come back. So this is my finished blanket. What I did was I put the fan all around the edge. Down the side I put, in between these tracks, I put 1 UK double crochet. In between the next one I did a 5 treble crochet fan. If you're in the USA, that's a single crochet and a double crochet fan. Around the corner I did 7 of my treble crochets to get me around the corner, and then I just done my double crochet in a fan all the way around the blanket, and this is what I've got. It's really, really pretty. It's a really pretty stitch. Give this a try. The thicker yarn you use, the faster this will work up. If you use a big 7, 8 or even a 9mm hook, then this blanket is going to crochet so fast. This was done with the Aldi rainbow yarn. It's a So Crafty brand, but it's from Aldi. And if you're in the UK and some of the other countries Aldi sells yarn, look online. If your shop doesn't do it, then go online and keep emailing them, asking them if they will do a craft event. That's what the yarn goes under. It goes under their craft events. Now I would say about 250 grams for this blanket. So I've still got all of this one left and one other one. It's the same as that rainbow yarn. Now a lot of people say that it feels a little scratchy. If you look at mine now, look how soft and flowy it is. If you put it in the sink in some warm water, just warm water that has just a little bit of fabric softener in it. It's going to soften this up. And this one is just so soft now because I gave it a little soak in the fabric softener. I put it in my washing machine and I just spun it, and then I put it on my radiator to dry. I just let it dry on its own. And this is what I've got. It's a beautiful, beautiful blanket. It's quite a big blanket as well. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Now I'm going to show you how to do the crocodile stitch in two colours. It's been around for a long time and I'm going to show you how to do it in two different colours. So the colours I've chosen today, I'm just going to use a white, and I'm going to use this really pretty sort of grey blue. I got this sent to me from a lady in Australia and her name is Bernie, and I'm going to use this. It's really lovely and squishy soft, and so is this one. This is just a double knitting. This one here, it's a 8-ply Merino, but they're the same thickness. They're just about the same thickness, so it will work. You can use different brands. I'll pop that up there. I'm going to zoom down a little bit as well. I'm going to use, I don't know if the light will pick it up, I'm going to use a 4.5. This is a UK 4.5 sized crochet hook. I'm going to start with the white because I want to do the edge in the blue. So we'll start with the white yarn. I'm going to do a chain. And I'll do my chain in sets of 3. Don't do your chain too tight. You don't want your blanket on the end to curve in the way. So I've done my chain. Into the 4th stitch in your chain, you're going to put a treble crochet, and that's you made your first V stitch. You're going to chain 1. You're going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and into the next stitch you'll put 1 treble crochet, 1 chain, and 1 treble crochet. If you're in the USA, that's 1 double crochet, 1 chain, and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. That's 1, chain 1, and 1 more into the same stitch to make a V stitch. And the reason it's called a V stitch is because it looks like the letter V. Chain 1, you're going to skip 2, 1, 2, and do a V stitch all the way along your chain. Now you need an odd number of V's to keep the pattern symmetrical. It needs to be an odd number of V's. So chain 1, skip 2, and do your V stitch. That's 1 treble crochet, 1 chain, and 1 treble crochet. Chain 1 and skip 2, and then do a V stitch all the way to the end. So chain 1 and another stitch into that same stitch. So that's us got our length. Make sure you've got 2 parts to each of your V stitches when you're going along. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. That's going to count as my first treble crochet. Now down the post of this V and back up again, we're going to work 5 treble crochets. So that chain 3 counts as the first one. So I'm going to yarn over and go around that post and do a treble crochet. If you're in the USA, this is a double crochet. So that counts as my first one. That's my second one. Around the same post, I'm going to do my third one, my fourth one, and my fifth one. Now I'm going to chain 1. Some people chain 2 here. It's up to you. You can either chain 1 or you can chain 2, and that makes the peak. I'll put that up there, leave it there. That makes the peak part of your stitch down here. So you're working your 5 treble crochets down, and then we'll work 5 treble crochets up that V stitch. I'll just leave that there like that. So I'm going to chain 1 and do 5, I'll move that tail out of the way, 5 treble crochets up the other side of that first V stitch. So yarn over, you can just squish it in half like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is what you have, you've got your little stitch down one side and up the other. I'm going to chain, turn it round that way, chain 2, 1 and 2. So we're going to turn it this way. You're going to skip that whole V stitch there. Skip that one and go to the next one. And you're going to do your 5 treble crochets down one side of the V and 5 up the other side. So that's 1, a little bit fiddly to begin with. 1, it's only your first row. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now you're going to chain 1, and work up the other side of that V stitch. Just squish it down so you can get around that stitch. It's just a bit like we did with the wriggle blanket. That's 2. Working around the post. 3, 4, and 5. Chain 2, 1, 2. Now you're going to skip that one. So we're on our next stitch. It is a little bit fiddly until you get the hang of this. So skip that V stitch and we're going to go down and up this one. So hold it like a little ladder. So you skip that one and work down that one and up that side. So down that post and up that post. Just fold it in half so you've got that stitch there. And do your first treble crochet, that's 1. So you're going to go 5 down, chain 1 and come up the other side with 5 treble crochets, or double crochets if you're in the USA. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's 5, chain 1 and work back up the other side. Just twist it around So you're coming back up the other side. We're going to do that all the way to the end, and you should finish on a scale stitch or a crocodile stitch on your very last V. That's 3, 4 and 5. Chain 2, 1, 2, just move it around so it looks like a ladder, skip that one and work this one. So just fold it so you've got that post there. 4 and 5. So it's a double crochet in the USA and it's a treble crochet in the UK. Now my fifth one, I'm going to put it into the chain just to lock it in. I'm going to go in through a stitch just to lock it in at the end. I'm going to cut my yarn. Now you will have some ends that you need to stitch in, and just pull that through. Oops, that didn't cut right through. Need some new scissors. So leave yourself a tail end that you can stitch in. And this is what you've got on your first round. You've got your first round of your little stitches like that one. Now each section is 2 rows. You do a row of the V-stitch and a row of your crocodile stitch. So what I'm going to do now is into the very corner of where that 5th treble crochet is, I'm going to put my hook through and I'm going to take my next colour of my yarn. I'm going to use this beautiful baby Merino yarn. It's absolutely beautiful. I got this sent to me from one of my friends. Her name is Bernie and she lives in Australia. Now you can see the Happy Mail video that Bernie, the big package that Bernie sent to me on my channel if you look through. So I'm just going to pull that through, my yarn through, and we're going to do a row of V stitches again with this other colour. So I'm going to chain 3, that's 1, 2 and 3. Oh, chain 1 more. So the 3 is your treble crochet and that 1 is your chain 1. Into that same stitch, put another treble crochet, and if you're in the USA, that's a double crochet. We're going to chain 1. Now where you've got this loose part where your 2 crocodile stitches and you've got the V stitch that you skipped, that's the V stitch you didn't work, you're going to attach those 2 with a V stitch. So yarn over and go right through there, and what you're going to do is you're going to attach that one to that one through that V stitch. There's the V stitch, so go through the V stitch and we're going to do a V stitch in there. That's 1 treble crochet, chain 1 and 1 treble crochet, chain 1 and move to the next crocodile stitch and do a V stitch, 1, chain 1 and treble crochet. So chain 1, so remember your chain 1s. So again we're going to just lock that together. We're using the V stitch that was skipped and we're going to put a V stitch in there. So right through, treble crochet, chain 1 and treble crochet, chain 1 and move to the next crocodile stitch into that space and put your next V stitch. You'll do that all the way along your line. Remember your chain 1s so that your blanket doesn't go in like that. So your chain 1s, I'll keep it separate like that. Work your way to the end. So we're going to just join these two pieces together. We're going through the V-stitch and it will catch those two and hold it in. So did I do chain 1 and put my V-stitch inside there, and at the same time it's going to lock this little flapping bit in. Now you can rewind the video. If you found I've gone a little too quick, rewind the video, and down there in the settings you can click on it and you can change the speed. If I'm going too slow, you can make it quicker, and if I'm going too fast, you can slow it down, and it's in the settings. There's a little round circle down there and it says settings. So I've changed my one and I'm doing my other part of my V-stitch. Remember and do the two parts of your V-stitch. So chain 1 and move to the next stitch. All the way along. Chain 1, then into the gap in between, going in between. So I'm at the last stitch and I'm going to put it in. I'm not going into the space, I'm going to put it into this little joint here just to help lock that stitch in place. Chain 1 and go into there to finish my V-stitch. Now this is what we have. This is what we've got now. Don't worry about your stitches, they will all lay flat. So this is what we have now. We're going to do our first blue one in here. We need to start in the second one so that our crocodile stitch comes in between the two white ones. Between the two white ones. From now on we'll be working our blue ones in between the white stitches. We have to get to this second V, so I'm going to slip stitch across to this second V stitch here. I'm just going to turn my work around like this and I'm going to slip along the stitches, just go in and out the stitches and slip along to that next V in the line. So we're going into that second V in the line. So just slip your way along through the stitches. You won't really see them once we do the next row, and into that second blue V shape. And that's us right at that post of that second V. The blue ones, when you do your second row, no matter what colour you're doing, you'll start on your second V. So that way it staggers it like this. You'll have, and this one it's pink and white, so I've got a pink one and it staggers in for the white. Pink, white, pink, white. So my second rows are all starting in the second V. So you'll chain 3, 1, 2, 3. That becomes your first treble crochet. And we're going to put 4 more down that post. So we're working on the second blue V shape. So that's 3. Oops. That's 4 and 5. Chain 1 and then just turn your work. Turn it and nip it so that we've got the other post to work up. We're going to work up this other post. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. and chain 2. 1, 2. We'll turn our work back round, just like ladder, so we can see it. Skip that one and work that one. So we're going to work all the V's. We're going to work all the V's that are in between the white stitches. Skip that one and then work that one all the way to the end. So this is what my little sample looks like now. I remember that you're working along and then working back. So I've done my last treble crochet in here and I'm at the last one of my V stitches. Now that one doesn't get worked. So I'm going to do a treble crochet. I've done my chain of 2. I'm going to do a treble crochet and I'm going to join it into the corner of this V stitch, into the 3rd stitch there. And just pull through. Now the easiest thing to do with this, you will stitch in your tails, and I found the easiest thing to do is just finish off your rows that you've done and then stitch in your little tail ends. So what we're going to do now is we're going to join the white again, and we're just going to repeat that bottom row there. Just do what you did for the blue. So I'm going to put my stitch through. Don't worry about all the tail ends, you can just stitch those in. Now pull that through and do a chain of 3. 1, 2 and 3. If you want to make it feel a little bit more secure, you can take your 2 tail ends and just put a little knot in it. And then you can stitch your ends in. There we go. It's going to hold all that a little bit more secure. So I've done my chain of 3. That's my first treble crochet. I'm going to chain 1. That's my chain 1, and into that same stitch where we've just been, we're going to do our 2nd treble crochet. Just pull those ends out. It will be better just to stitch those in as you go along. So that's me done my first V stitch. So my next one is going in here, just the same way we did for the white. So we're going to chain 2, chain 1, and do your V stitch into the middle of this blue one. 1 treble crochet, chain 1, and 1 treble crochet. Chain 1, and we're going to join these 2 pieces together. Just go into the V stitch in there. Make sure you do both parts of your V stitch. We're going to do this all the way along, and this is the 2 rows that you'll repeat. You're going to work right to the end this time with your crocodile stitch, and that one will lay itself in the space there. The next one will be between the 2 blue ones, and that's going to make this staggering effect. Move my ball of yarn out of the way. So as you can see, on the end of my row I've got a pink one, and then my white one goes in there. Then it's pink, white, it goes out, in and out, all the way up, and that's the way this one will work. My next white one will be in there. So I'm going to work all the way to the end with my V stitch row. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3. So that counts as my first treble crochet. So I need another 4 because we need to put 5 down this stitch. That's 1, 2, sorry, that's 3, 4 and 5. Chain 1. Now just give it a little turn around and we're going to work up this side here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Chain 2, 1, 2. Now we're going to just slightly turn it again so you can see it like a little ladder. Skip that one and we're going to work into the stitch between these two here. Now you can make this all one colour. I do have another video on showing you how to do all this one colour, so skipping that one and we're working that one. You're basically working the ones that are in between the stitches. You're working the V stitches in between the pattern on the row below. So skip that one and do your 5 treble crochets, your chain 1 and work up the other side of that V stitch. That's 2, 3, 4 and 5. Chain 1 and just turn it slightly. You can fold it in half if you want to get in to that space there and put 5 treble crochets in. That's 1, 2, around that post, 3, 4 and 5. Chain 2, 1, 2, give it a little turn back. We're going to skip the one that's in the middle of there and work the next one. Done a few rows of this crocodile stitch or scale stitch. Some people even call it the dragon stitch as well, and it's been around for a long time. And that is how you do 2 colours to it. Now, the pink and white one that I did, I put a border around it. I'm going to quickly show you how to do that on this little sample piece. Now, when you look down the side, you've got your little loops down the side of the V-stitch that we missed. These are the skipped ones. And along the bottom, you've got your chain. And then up the side, you've got the same. You've got your little part where, again, where we missed it. These are the parts where you're going to put your fan in. So I'm just going to put my hook into there. I'm going to get my yarn, and I want to thank Bernie in Australia who sent this to me. It's really pretty and it's beautiful yarn. I'm just going to pull my yarn through. I'll zoom in a little bit so we can see a little bit better. I'll just wrap my tail around. We can stitch that tail end in. Pull that down. Pull it all in. And I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2 and 3. So that chain of 3 counts as your first treble crochet. I'm going to put another 6 in there. Now when I did this little pink one, I've actually got 7 treble crochets in the fan. So we've got 1, that chain counts as 1 and 2. Now I'm going around the part of the V that we missed. Do you remember that we missed? Now, do you remember we missed the very first V when we did the blue? So 1, 2, I'm just putting it around that V. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So this is my stitch here. This is my crocodile stitch. Right beside it, I'm going to just latch this one down. So just do a double crochet in there to hold that fan down like that. Now you can do more than one row. When you do the fan, you can do your next one in between and just work around more than one row. So into this space here, so we've got our next stitch that's missed. I'm going to put my 7 treble crochets. That's a UK treble crochet. If you're in the USA, this is a double crochet. I'm going to put 7 in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Now you don't need to put a border around this. I'm going to go into just right at the bottom of that crocodile stitch and do a double crochet just to lock that fan into place. You've got your even spaces anyway because that is the V-stitch that we skipped. I don't know why I keep drifting off to that. I keep drifting off to that other side there. So I'm going around this V-stitch here that was skipped. I'm putting the fan in line with my blue colour here. It's 1, 2. Now I'm going to lock this one in because I'm running along the bottom of my blanket now. I'm going to lock this one in to here. Now that's my stitch. So I'm going into that little space there and I'll just secure that band down in there. So just go into there and do a double crochet. Now I'm going along to my next chain space. I've got this V-stitch here. Can you see the V-stitch? I'll turn that round. So that's the V-stitch there. We're going to put the fan in there. So that's the V-stitch. I'm going inside there. That's the ones that was skipped on at the very, very beginning. So I'm going to put my treble crochets. That's 1. Put my 7 in there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. And we'll lock it down into that middle bit of that crocodile stitch, just under there. And we'll move along to the next V-stitch in the middle of the next V-stitch. And what that's going to do is it's going to put that nice little fan all the way around the blanket like this, if you've done a big blanket. Now I've just done a little small sample of this, and this is what it looks like on the larger one. That's the bottom of my blanket, and you can see where I've put the fan in to the missed V-stitch, and going down the side I put the fan into the missed V-stitch on the white on here, because the white is the one that's set in. The white is the one that's set in, and that's where I put that fan in that missed V-stitch at the beginning of the white rows, and I put them into the skipped stitch in between the pink on the bottom. Now I haven't put anything on the top. I've left the top the way it is. I've left it just like that on the top of the blanket. You can put the fan along the top if you want it, but the my niece that I've done this for didn't want anything along the top. She wants to stitch a piece of tartan lace on it. She wants to put some lace on it. But this is really pretty as well. So give it a try. Give this a try. Just space out your fans along the bottom in between your stitches and space them out in between these here. In these spaces, just use your empty V stitches. You can, if you want, do the same along the top. You can just attach that one in and put a fan in along there and then secure it with a double crochet into the top. So you can put the fans in the top as well. Put them in between your crocodile stitch. So just put your fan into there. And that is how you do your, and that's how I done the little fan border around it. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. It's up to you. The purpose of the tutorial was to show you how to do this beautiful crocodile stitch or dragon stitch, whatever you want to call it, in two different colours.